Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting ready for our second series of the day in Evil Geniuses Prodigies taking on TSM Amateur. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of how these two teams are going to be expected to play out against each other, I want to take a look back at the groups that these two teams had to play out in and being able to get to this quarterfinal matchup in the first place, starting with Group B, where TSM Amateur emerged as the #1 seed, where we just saw the second seed of that same group drop 0-2 to Wildcard Red, but in it, we have to remember, Jolly, that Cloud9 Amateur were the ones that made it all the way to the Risen Finals. So for TSM Amateur to not only beat out Cloud9 Amateur, but also a team in Resolve who we were expecting and having just higher expectations going into the summer. There's still things for them to work out on, but it is a mark of fast improvement from this squad here.
Oh, so much so. And they've already got a lot of cohesion on this team of TSM Amateur. Eclipse in the top, Frost Forest in the jungle, and Doxa in the mid lane specifically. Already we know, being very familiar with the collegiate scene, that Winthrop is where they still reside as well. So they have a lot of cohesion as a team. And then throw somebody like Donbray in there, who's one of the younger members here, only 17 years old, but really willing to pull out some of the champions that we love to see. It is incredible how quickly these amateur teams have just jumped up in terms of technical skill and communication.
The other thing, too, to note about TSM Amateur is that you have a good mix of not only, as Jolly pointed out, synergy in the collegiate space thanks to Doxa and Frost Forest coming from Winthrop University, but you also have former Academy talent from Gorka, who was in Golden Guardians Academy, and he's also no stranger to the collegiate scene as he came from, I want to say, University of Western Ontario as a...
Western University, I think.
Oh, Western... Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Western University. Mm-hmm. He was... Now, cool thing about Gorka is that he was a top laner at one point for this squad, even though he is primarily a marksman. And so, if you remember Rebel during one of the collegiate or the C-LOL championships a couple years ago, or maybe either 2019, there was a point where he was playing top lane, and then he pulls out Vayne top lane because it's like, hey guys, you have to remember, I was a marksman player when my career first started.
And I wonder if we get another callback like that, because you know that like Mundo sent us something that we've seen, so he can call back to his top lane days and give us a little bit of a shout out like that. I don't think it's going to happen, but like there is that as well to play into that story. But yeah, when it comes to like TSM, obviously our expectations for a bunch of these teams have always been high when they've got this like name from the LCS attached to them, and TSM has lived up to it pretty much, I think, faster than what we've seen from other teams. Where like 100 Thieves was really good when they first started, but recently like their team has taken a bit to get online. C9 took a couple steps to get online. EGP was firing from the start, but they picked up an entire squad from Zenith. But the TSM squad has kind of fit into this very quick level of play that is unexpected, I think, for what we've seen in the past. But it is very much good for them. They've got carries in multiple roles. They're starting to be able to put their pieces together as it's shown within this group. And it's really nice to see that TSM's players, because we love all of them so much for how much we've seen them inside of Collegiate, having covered them for so long. It's really starts to put it together for the squad to do well.
Now, for TSM Amateur, all the praise that we are giving to them, mainly off the back of just this rapid, fast development that they've made within the past month. As this TSM Amateur roster, when you look at the full scope of it, Frost Force being added in over Infectrix near the end of, I want to say, June, before Risen started. Or actually before near the end of May, before Risen started, as that roster came together. It had mixed results in Risen, but then EGL, they're here in quarterfinals, right? All of this, it's great, it's awesome to see, but we got to look at Evil Geniuses Prodigies, and we cannot disrespect them or disservice them in any shape or way or form, because this was by far the most dominant LCS amateur affiliated team. This is the king when it comes to all the squads that are rising up. I know 100 Thieves next, they're going to go into semifinals against Wildcard Red. TSM Amateur are sprouting up. Cloud9 Amateur also looking good in the summer. But Evil Geniuses Prodigies are still where the bee's knees are. And for EGP, they will not be playing with Shoryu today. They will be playing with Saskio. But it just goes to show that even in using a sub, I mean, this is a formidable 80 carry player that is coming in. And it's someone that, quite respectfully, Jolly, that Doxa and Frost Force are going to be very, very, very familiar with, because they literally just played together in their last collegiate invitational over at the Gateway Legends a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Sasuke retired, not retired entirely.
They keep bringing him back, man.
They keep bringing him back. He just can't retire. He's too dang good. And this is one of those players where, I mean, in the last year, when I think of certain champions, when I think of Kaisa, I think of last year's Sasuke. And there's just so much power that this guy holds within that bottom lane. But Frostforce and Doxa know exactly how much power is there. I mean, they very, very recently played together, like you said, for Winthrop. And so to have a little bit of a face-off already, especially across these 3 lanes, to have the jungle and the mid laners of Frostforce and Doxa, where they tend to keep a lot of focus, looking over at EGP and Sasuke down at the bottom there with Skytech, where they have a lot of focus. So this is going to be a very, very dynamic game, really showing us just how strong each of these teams are in terms of their win conditions, which are in different areas of the map.
The other thing, too, is that when we look at probably the most exciting matchup in this quarterfinals, it is going to be in the jungle between Frostforce and Tomio. And I know that Rebel might be given the little eyeballs like, hey, you know what, just because he's from Utah doesn't make him the favorite matchup. But when you look at how well TSM Amatuer have been able to come through, Frostforce, that addition over Infectrix, started gluing the pieces together. And then you have to look at Tomio, who is by far one of the top jungle prospects that we've had since the beginning of spring when Evil Genius Prodigies first made their debut. They had a strong finish in Proving Grounds towards the April, and Tomio was always the person that was able to really be the architect for a lot of their victories in the spring, and Tomio still gets to reign supreme in this jungle meta as of now.
Tomio won my heart when he played in Risen the first split in the semifinals against Zeus Gaming, when he pulled out Rengar and had like 14 kills or something like that. Went absolutely off. You can't not support him in every single matchup. He is somebody who tends to carry a lot of the carry potential for EGP, so there is that to consider as well. He's pretty resource heavy when it comes to not only, you know, what he plays like, but also his champion pool, because he does like some of these things that tend to like resources very heavily in the early game, like support. But when you have somebody like Aspect in the mid lane, that's really helpful. Whereas on the other side, Doxa tends to pull a bit more when it comes to like jungle resource. It's more so that they play to Doxa, and on the other side we see play to Tomio, which we're sure to see some interaction between mid and jungle, because that's going to be exciting across the map. The big thing for this jungle matchup is, of course, like, you know, what kinds of champions are they pulling out? Because we have a bunch of champions that can duel with each other. We saw Lee Sin versus Diana in our first series of the day, and I'm curious if we get anything like that again, because this pure checking skill, I think, will head towards Tomio's like abilities. And if he shuts down Frostforce, then all of a sudden that also kind of cuts off Doxa. But if he doesn't, and all of a sudden you get support for the likes of Frostforce, Doxa's unleashed on the map because he's receiving resources, and things open up for TSM, which is one of the best ways they've been able to take games.
The other thing to consider, too, is that Tomio, I mean, we know that during the spring split, it was a lot of Udyr Hekra meta, which, you know, for many jungle enthusiasts might be more of the Resident Sleeper kind of meta. But, you know, Tomio, he's an Evil Genius's boy, and there's something in the water that they drink over there, but their Nidalees are so damn good. You look at the entire rosters all the way in LCS and in Academy and here in Amateur. Tomio's Nidalee, amazing. Contract Nidalee, amazing. Svenskeren Nidalee, incredible. Like, I don't know if we'll be getting a Nidalee game in this series, but Frostforce has been putting in quite the work on the Lee Sin, as we saw in last week's Group Day stage matchups against Cloud9 Amateur, which I mean, first of all, playing Lee Sin into the face of XU, who just tried to do his best in Game 1 of Wildcard Red earlier today, was absolutely, you know, that's something that, you know, just cannot be understated here. So I hope that we get some exciting skirmishers in the jungle. And before we throw for our first game of the day, we actually wanted to take some time to address something, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't get a chance to see this, but we actually have a special shout out to one of our players from Wildcard Red that just completed their series. It is Mr. Arrow, and it's their birthday today. So first of all, happy birthday for you, my friend. Thank you so much for not only playing in Proving Grounds and being part of Wildcard Red, because I think he already knows how much Wildcard appreciates having him, not only as a player in their roster, but also he's been someone, as we've talked to other players, that he's been trying to help be a coach and a mentor to other developmental rosters that are in the wildcard structure as well. So, you know, awesome stuff to him, and nice way to capitalize with a win, advancing into semifinals and one step closer towards that Grand Slam in the Proving Grounds for the Tier 2 tournaments. But Cubby and Mr. TJ, the Jolly, what was the duo name that are pitching for themselves?
Oh goodness. Oh, I'm not gonna remember it.
The Down Bad Plaid Lads.
Yes! That was it. Yeah, sorry. That was the name that I came up with. Down Bad for the Plaid Lads.
Yes.
Because they called themselves the Plaid Lads.
Ladies
Plaid Lads, so
yes. You have to... Gamers, you have to understand, when we bring these two handsome gentlemen, you are going to be down bad for these Plaid Lads. TJ and Cubby, take it away.
Thank you very much, Rafa. For the longest time, I thought I didn't own any plaid. And then I think, Cubby, it was just the fact that I've been casting more with you. We were doing League Day a ton. And I opened up my closet this morning, and this jacket was actually just there waiting for me.
Wow.
So I knew it was time to be the Plaid Lads.
Well, I'm glad that we could be the Plaid Lads for the second quarterfinals matchup of the day, because TJ, we've got two LCS orgs, their amateur teams playing for some pretty high stakes. If they win this best of 3, they have a 2 out of 3 shot of making Proving Grounds. There are 2 spots, Wildcard Red already has 1. And so you just have to win one of the best of 5s in semis or finals, or third place match to get through. But that starts with this best of 3. You have to take this set to be able to get that 2 out of 3 shot. We're going to have to see which team can do it in the end.
Cubby, I understand what you're saying, but this is some, like, esports coach thing where you're like, it's just probability. We've got a 2 out of 3 shot. They're through to semifinals. They still got to win the games.
Yeah, I mean, of course they're trying to win the tournament, but the golden nugget, of course, being Proving Grounds. It's pretty high stakes.
All right. Let's talk about the teams themselves. We can keep that coach energy rolling, as TSM have been coming into this with their best performance thus far as a roster. EGP are kind of also struggling to set a new standard for this roster, as they've been underperforming maybe compared to our expectations from the Evil Genius Prodigies name.
Starting off with EGP, it's tough to beat what they did in the last split. I mean, a 5th, 6th finish in Proving Grounds as a 3rd team for EG. They were beating out about half the academy teams that we have in the league. Of course, that was at the hands of Shiro, was helping out. That new bot lane for them, just the youth of Skytech, and trying to meld him in with Shoryu. I think that EGP have actually played well, but underperformed, and it's kind of fun talking with both these teams, because TSM feels like they're in the same boat. I know talking with Gorka, he feels like they should have made it out of groups in Risen, that their play was almost there, it just wasn't polished enough, and some of that inexperience, that more development that comes with playing more of these competitive games was needed as TSM. This is the first time they've been in the quarterfinals in the 3 Proving Ground tournaments that we've had. They topped their group, a tough group at that, as C9, AM, and Resolve were in there. OQ was even taking games off those teams too. I think that TSM comes in very battle-tested, and EGP are going to be up against a pretty tough competition in this one.
And I'm excited because some of the names on both these teams have been promising names around for the last couple of seasons, so getting to see these rosters finally kind of click is the promise of this tournament and is the promise of this best of 3. Let's talk draft itself. The bans are through and we're into our first picks. Viego priority continues as Saskio comes in. We kind of saw this coming.
So Saskio, if you are not familiar with Saskio, we have a few fun storylines or narratives about him, because he won CLAW with Winthrop, and his teammates there were Doxa and Frostforce, and Saskio is literally the collegiate GOAT. I mean, he has won 3 CLAWs playing for 2 different schools at 2 different positions too. No other school or player has won 3 CLAWs. He is the greatest CLAW player of all time, and what he's been doing after his graduation, well, he actually got a brand new spanking computer. He's got his Maryville championship ring in there. He's been streaming. So he's been doing that and coaching, and an E-sub was required for today. Shoryu, he's alright, just couldn't make the game, so Sasuke is going to try and step in and step up and beat his old teammates, and Doxa and Frostforce, who have been playing good and already have this lethal LeBlanc Lee Sin duo they've been playing throughout this tournament to great effect.
And I'm not saying this is what made the decision. Sasuke is a very good player, as you've outlined. But if I'm Coach Ida, over on the EG side, and I go, hang on, we can get the inside scoop. We can get the angle on what TSM's core want to do. I don't know. Maybe it's an extra bonus. Let's talk through what gets locked in. You're right. I was talking about the Varus priority. This is one of Saskia's favorite characters. Certainly something he was experienced on. Certainly something we saw coming. So did TSM, it looks like, because they prioritized the tools to get into that backline. You already have Lee Sin and LeBlanc, who are going to be very scary threats to the Varus during these games. We also get something that Raffle was hyping up during this first pick phase, which is, of course, the Tomio Nidalee.
And both these teams, right off the bat, they're actually drafting comps we expect them to do just because it fits their style. I think TSM, it's all about Frost Force kind of enabling Doxa, and that's really what gets them off the ground and running, as Doxa is a player that has some insane moments with his own play, but needs that help to get off the ground sometimes. And Frost Force was able to do that in Collegiate, and is now doing that for TSM Amateur, whereas for EGP, especially with Saskio in, we're expecting this to be the Tomio show and him enabling Surdy and getting that Renekton Nidalee combo. That's exactly a combo that you can use to try and get Surdy going in that top lane.
What's exciting to me seeing the Zoe as well, if that's what gets thrown in for Aspect, is it's a degree of safety for Aspect. This is actually something that a lot of EG, I remember EG Academy 2 splits ago, good lord, time's going, this was one of the team's compositions that they really liked, because you could throw out the bubbles and use it as kind of a poke form of CC for the team, and keep that Zoe very safe, which is frankly what you want in a lane with Doxa on the other end of it.
And Aspect and Tomio and Doxa and Frost Force, just as players, it's different because we talked about Frost Force enabling Doxa, but Aspect I actually think is very slept on, and he really enables Tomio. He does his job. He gets very minimal resources, but he's so effective with what he's given. And he's going to have a tough challenge up against Doxa, but if anyone's going to be up for the task, I really think it's Aspect. He's a very slept-upon player that we have in semi-pro. As we're wrapping up both of these drafts, TJ, I know we've been trying to lay down some of the storylines, but over these drafts, TSM, right off the bat, it looks like they're going to be using that Gangplank Ezreal to try and control space, to play weak side top and bot, and just try and get Doxa going. It's all about that Lee Sin LeBlanc duo, whereas for EGP, they've got 3 lanes with Gank Assist and Nidalee. Tomio can go wherever he wants to try and get some help to make things happen.
There's CC anywhere Tomio shows up. There's good engage anywhere Tomio shows up. And that means, as you're correct to identify, it is the Tomio show for EG. So we'll keep an eye on that jungle duo, as Frost Forest has a very narrow mission statement. I think the Gangplank obviously benefits from aid, but the mission is, let's get Doxa going, let's make this LeBlanc scary enough that she can one-pop characters like the Varus in the late game. Whereas the EG side, you have the Renekton, you have the Varus, both of whom scale very well to the mid-game teamfights, where EG are hoping to come out on top, hoping to end the game before they need to deal with LeBlanc, Ezreal, GP, and they're going to be able to set that up using Tomio basically anywhere on the map. And it's time to see how it goes. Game number 1 of our best of 3.
And diving into this game 1, TJ, I want to pick up upon that last thread that you dropped, as the fact that the 1 item spike for EGP with Nidalee, with Zoe, with Forest, that's so much poke coming out from them. But if the game goes too long, and that Gangplank is able to scale, get 2-3 items, if that LeBlanc's able to get to level 16, where she gets that low cooldown ultimate, I think that's where things could get tricky for EGP. So I really want to keep our eyes on Tomio and in this matchup versus Frost Forest. I'm expecting Tomio to try and path up top and for a potential 3-wave dive to come in combined with Surdy. And I actually love the fact that Doxa, he's warding out that red, so they really want to see where Tomio starts, because if he starts on the bot side, they're going to have to instantly start to think of a game plan of how to defend Eclipse in that top side.
So, focus away from Eclipse, hopefully. I'm actually really excited. This is something you underscored briefly when it got drafted, but I want to draw the attention back over to it. GP Ezreal, whenever I see it, or occasionally we saw the Ashe GP ages ago, but whenever I see just the ability to have that double global threat across the map, it's really exciting to me because it opens up so many opportunities for team play without having to physically maneuver across the map. It's a huge boon to the team. I don't know if that's interesting to you, but if we could get kind of the coach rundown, I think that's very, very mechanically fun to see.
The global, I mean, the Ezreal one, it's like a semi-global. You can use it to assist and cut waves, but the GP is the big one, right? And if you're able to utilize that GP ult to save yourself a wave or two or turn a play when you don't have TP, that can be a big difference in these fights. It's just really going to be up to the coordination of TSM to see if they can do it. And to be fair, talking with Gorka, he thinks that's the big difference with why they're performing so well in this tournament. The fact that their coordination, it's been on point compared to past ones.
Yeah. You flagged that specifically for Donbray. You said that it was Donbray who had stepped up massively compared to previous tournaments, and a huge part of that is he looks much better with the team. Eclipse in trouble here on the top side, so I'm going to pick this up as he goes down to maybe one solid Renekton engages worth of HP, but does survive the experience.
And Surdy, part of the reason he's trading so heavily on that top side, TJ, is the fact that they're spotting Lee Sin on Raptors. Tomio is ahead in the clear on Italy, even though it's leashless, just partly thanks to the champion, partly thanks to his mechanics, as this is a champion that you have to be able to clear quickly on. It's not easy to do. And Tomio's going to get top first. Very important, as it's not a three-wave die, but oh boy, flash blown from Surdy.
Yeah, not a great start, as Surdy is really fishing for Eclipse's HP. And yeah, guess who's on his way up? It is Frost Forest, and he goes back in. Surdy recommitting. Big trouble calls for Eclipse, but underneath the turret, the kill will be confirmed. Eclipse stays ahead of the charge. Frost Forest, the mere threat of him is enough to force Surdy to go for that flag.
I'm really curious to see how Tomio responds, because Frost Forest skipped over 3 camps to do that, and Tomio's hunting him as he doesn't spot Frost Force. He should now. Both junglers know they're there. Surdy TP back. They're going to still try and go for this play.
Surdy onto Eclipse. He's got the stun. Beautiful. That spear's perfect. That spear from Tomio finds the kill. And Frost Force
got a level. He can win this.
Some vengeance, but this is a 1v2, and it's even trading so far. TP in off the respawn. That's Eclipse rejoining the fight. Doxa roaming up. Eclipse steps in. Surdy nails down, zeroes down on Frost Forest and can't complete the kill. That's very good trading from TSM Amatuer.
A little bit of over-aggression coming in from EGP, but this is what we expected them to do. It's mistakes being made, but they're playing their composition outright. They have the right idea of what's going on. It's just a little bit of overextending coming in from Surdy. He's really trying to take on the mantle of the Renekton of this matchup to try and make a big difference, as we are getting replays. And this one, honestly, it's the right play from Surdy to suicide here, because you're denying gold from Frost Force. So it looks bad, but it does take away that assist gold. And then as the play rolls out, Meteos has level 4, so or I should say, Tomio has level 4, so he's able to actually go for this and hunt it down. But Eclipse uses the TP to get back, to turn the play, and we just have an awkward early game posturing here, TJ.
And this was when I got kind of worried, because you can see there's just a split call here. Meteos sees the TP coming in and says, well, I gotta get out, and Surdy sees the TP coming in and says, well, I gotta try and convert the kill. And it doesn't look synced up. Here's a roam up. Again, action in the top lane as Eclipse is under threat. Surdy pushes in, chase underneath the turret. Doxa's got him, dead to the turret. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but if you're TSM, you take that every time, because putting Tomio further behind is the mission statement.
Aggressive plays and response coming out from TSM as they're trying to fight fire with fire here early, TJ. As, of course, we talked about the fact that LeBlanc, we like her level 16 a lot, but obviously LeBlanc's known for her early skirmishing, her early ability to take these skirmishes and fight. And we see Doxa making use of that with that TP. Now, Eclipse is forced to base and will catch most of this wave. So Renekton does catch up a little bit here, but still, I love the focus and the fact that TSM, even though they have a comp that's not as good early, they're at least going for this and trying to pull off these plays.
Yeah, Doxa really swinging for the fences there, but again, I like the trade, because TSM, again, are trying to make this game spiral out of control, and if you're able to trade mid laner for jungler, the jungler is always going to be harder hit by that, especially during this early phase of the game. Because you have several moments there where Tomio isn't able to contest the bottom half of his jungle. Several camps get stolen away by Frost Forest. He, of course, loses vision in his own jungle as Frost Forest is able to throw some deep wards down. All of which adds up to make it, I think, worthwhile.
And you can see Tomio still hunting, still going for plays as a death sentence lands. They're trying to poke Donbray out and contest this next red buff, as they do have priority on this side as well, TJ. It's kind of a backup plan for them. If they can use that Varus, get Cryo bot, take the early dragons, but Skytech's in trouble.
Donbray going in and finding the opposing support, so over the wall comes Tomio. Donbray with a flash so narrowly survives in the same copy set for Skytech. Now Frost Forest, wow!
Is he gonna bleed?
Narrowly escapes, the red buff's hunting
Safeguard.
him. The red buff
safeguard
will
saved
not
him.
get the kill as this safeguard keeps him alive. Very, very well played. TSM, that was right on the edge of their health bars, but they get another kill unanswered.
Oh, they just know the limits of their champions, TJ, and the fact that they're winning these plays out by such narrow margins, tragic for EGP, but also means so much for TSM as this game goes on. Because we talked about their scaling, they scale immensely into EGP's composition. The fact that things are going their way early makes things a lot harder for EGP as this game goes on. An even gold game at this point is good for TSM. It helps TSM, and now the backup plan for EGP is to start stacking up these dragons, try and enable a powerful soul, which the fact that Cloud Dragon's on the map now means that they're going to roll a good soul. So we're going to have to see if C9 can take this earlier, if they keep on hunting for plays, as Saskio has 6. Going to have to see if he looks.
Okay. Chain of Corruption will land.
Yeah,
that's an easy kill onto Donbray. So something back for EGP. As Saskio is able to land the ulti, you have a good roam from Tomio. This should be the dragon goes over, but they don't have the resources to contest across the map, so TSM are going to get the Rift Herald in answer.
And if you're TSM, this is still trading up, right? The fact that EGP weren't able to get off the ground, couldn't take this dragon before Rift Herald spawns, means that it's an even trade for TSM, and you're trading up in this situation. If you have the scaling comp, you want that gold early. You want to try and keep putting the Renekton behind, because the fact is an even matchup. GP outscales that one, and so TSMA making good decisions early here, TJ, getting the best of EGP because they're winning out on those skirmishes by such little margins.
Yeah, if you're TSM, you're looking at the gold graph. And yeah, it doesn't quite build in your advantage just in raw numbers right now. But the gold is where you want it. They've got Doxa off to a firm lead. They've got a massive advantage over Tomio in the jungle, forcing him so far behind compared to where a Nidalee normally would want to be. This is all working out for TSM.
Yeah, Tomio is still ahead thanks to some of his play, but you're right. Like, the attempts they've had, the skirmishes, the fact they're winning those out, it is preventing Nidalee from snowballing this game out of control, which is what EGP needs to do to win. As Tomio is going to complete his final camp here with the Krugs, and it looks like he's going to base, so not going for a play top, as Eclipse did time it up with his own recall. TSM will dodge out on a potential play, potential gank there, as they continue to survive this early game, TJ, and continue to give themselves a better chance to win. And once those 1-2-item spikes come in, especially in Ezreal, when you get that Divine Sunder or Mirror Mana against this team comp for EGP, it's going to be very difficult for them to lock down an Ezreal.
I've been trying to figure out in this mid lane. Oh, Aspect, that was a mistake. He spends the blink. Donbray is just there. Very low. Frost Force finds the kill. Instant response from Tomio, though. Donbray down. Support for mid. TSM take that trade.
And that preempted flash from Tomio, it might look a little bit funky to the viewers, but he's doing that to dodge out from the kickback on Frost Force, to prevent Doxa from making a follow-up play. So it may look funky, but it was a really intelligent play from Tomio on the Nidalee.
Such clean mechanics from Tomio.
Yeah, I mean, his Nidalee is very good and well-known for a reason, but Donbray, once he sees him go for the Ignite, right, that's a free W you get to land. And the reason Aspect goes down is just the kick from Frost Force, is that preemptive flash once again from Tomio, right? Getting around Frost Force, preventing the kickback that would have put him in a doom scenario. I like the fact that Tomio is respecting that, as looks like he connected on a couple of spears in the mid lane. Maybe a sleep here from Aspect, going to force a back from Doxa, maybe the TP, as that's actually a small win here for EGP across the map. Might open up a play for them elsewhere, as there's no more TP advantage for TSM. We're going to have to see if Tomio is able to figure things out, as we're going to have to see if they can figure things out on the tech end as we have a pause.
So what's going on in your life, Covey?
You know, I played some golf this morning. Studied some VODs for League.
How'd the golf go?
You know what? I had a 76. It was the best round I played in about a year. I used to be a really good player in high school. I don't play anymore, but we shot even on the back with 3 birdies. Not bad.
Explain what a 76 means.
It means I was 4 over par on the course. And that's pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah. I know golf's like a different language, but, you know.
No, that was, you just hit me with so many different golf words. It was you were speaking a different language. But I also know that if I'm like talking about baseball or even League of Legends to somebody else, that's how it happens. I did want to, we've just been told by production that this is going to be a little bit of a longer pause, and we can look back at those replays. I would love to see some of those skirmishes that happened in the top lane again, because I think that has kind of defined the pace of our game so far. The way that the early action broke down, just to kind of reiterate it for you, Cubby, TSM managed to get the tempo set for their win condition, which is drawing the attention away from the focus on their own jungle, on their own mid, spending it instead up here, shutting down Certain.
And I think the big mistake, honestly, from Surdy is honestly the fact that he blew Flash there, and he wasn't able to crash the wave. At that point, if you play the wave and go for the crash, you can actually reset and get that call that he wanted the entire time. With the 3-wave crash, instead of blowing Flash, trading, and not getting the wave in, which opened up an angle for Frostforce to get the kill. And now, I mean, they're already playing from behind despite having a winning matchup, and the fact that him and Tomio were able to save this was good. But if the matchup's played correctly, TJ, they shouldn't be in the position where they have to salvage a play like this, right? They should be ahead. They should be able to get the clean dive in the first place.
So does this all come, because this was the question I had and couldn't ask during the live game, does this all come back to Surty blowing that flash earlier in the lane, overextending under turret?
Yeah, he took 2 tower shots throughout that laning phase, if you go back and watch it, at least that we saw on camera. And that health being lost in this matchup, and the fact that he was trading heavily instead of trying to fight to get the wave in at the 3rd wave, where I believe he was going to try and recall for a Cole. I think that's kind of where the things went wrong. And that top lane skirmish, obviously a lot of ramifications throughout the rest of the game, and has kept EGP at even footing against TSM, where with the draft they have, if it's played out correctly, they want to be ahead 2-3 gold at this point.
I've just been told that we've gotten through the pause, so masterfully done, Covey. That was to do with some lag on TSM's side, as they were resolving that technical issue. But we're good to go.
As we know, Reginald's very against 60 ping, so no lag for TSM. And no lag, to be fair, for anyone playing in this game. That's just no fun to deal with.
We don't talk about Reginald's Twitter account on air. That's the law.
Well,
pressure from TSM now across the map. They are trying to use this Rift Herald they picked up moments before we headed into the pause. Frostforce is holding it. And the mid lane Aspect does get scared back a bit. That's a full commit under tower in mid. Aspect survives it, as Frostforce and Dawnbray both push forward, kind of looking for something there.
And also Eclipse on that top side, it was off camera. He did burn Flash, and he was utilizing the ultimate to try and create some more space for himself. As it looks like Dawnbray and Frostforce also burned 2 flashes on that play for Aspect, but he dodged out on it, TJ, as his Zoe play, champion that we don't see quite as much of in the meta, but against Doxa's the Blanc and the Lee Sin, said, I feel like this is the pick that's comfortable for me, and I know that Doxa's 3-1 at the moment, but Aspect's been, once again, doing a good job with little resources, mitigating plays, absorbing pressure, not having a ton of damage dealt to him, and Doxa, to be fair, got a lot of those kills in the top lane skirmishes that happened earlier in the game.
Rift Herald will be thrown Gorika's way.
Okay.
He'll get a decent chunk of gold out of that.
So Eclipse TP'd bot, which tells me that TSM want to contest the Dragon, but Tomio is here with Skytech, and Frostforce might be caught.
Frostforce in a very weird place right now. Will rush forward to the team. That was very well played. And Dawnbray dances away as well. Frostforce goes back in and just gets deleted by Surty. So 1 for 1, and jungler down for TSM. That makes this dangerous around the Dragon.
TSM were able to dodge out on the poke, but I feel like that TP from Eclipse, TSM were trying to make a tempo play around this Dragon TJ, and the TP, it just came in a wave early. Like, they were trying to go for turret plates, but that gave EGP time to respond. Their comp is still stronger at this point of the game. They're able to trade evenly, but they win the health bar advantage, and this enables them to take the second Dragon as they continue the Dragon stacking. It looks like it's going to be an Ocean Soul for them. So once again, that powerful soul they can try and obtain to mitigate the scaling advantage that TSM has is going to be an option for them as this game goes on.
I want to talk about Frost Forest's positioning here and what he does to mitigate it, because he gets that resonating strike mark onto the Thresh Skytech so far, like a full second before he recasts it, and that almost gets him out. And then he decides he's going back in and just eats like everything, and that doesn't go great. But the first part was really impressive.
It was a good save. It was not a good-looking setup for TSM, but thanks to that play from Frost Force, was able to at least get a kill for TSM as EGP were rotating for the response. And Frost Forest, honestly, Sin. We talked about him enabling Doxa, enabling his side laners. He's done just that in the early game of this game, TJ. And now it's going to be on Doxa and on Gorka as this game goes on. Once those 2-item spikes come in, and that's going to be another 5 minutes. That's where things get hairy for EGP. This 1k gold advantage is not going to be enough as the game goes on. So I really want to see how EGP are going to be able to push the pace, push the tempo, as it's going to be tough around this Dragon that is not going to spawn for another 4 minutes. And I want to see if they can bait TSM into a fight around the Rift Herald. Maybe utilize that objective to find a fight, or if they can start moving Nidalee and Skytech, or Tomio and Skytech on the Nidalee and Thresh around together to try and find picks and utilize the CC chain with all the damage coming out from Nid. Try and find some favorable skirmishes for themselves.
You do have a roam coming up here towards Eclipse. This is Tomio rushing through the jungle. Eclipse focused down, hit by the spear, stunned up under the turret. Cannon barrage, but it does not matter. That's the kill that EG were looking for.
I really like the setup from EG too, because Varus at this point of the game, he pretty much guarantees mid lane priority, so that enables Skytech and Tomio to go hover and then make that play for EGP. So good map play, good macro play coming out from them as, oh, Frost Force is caught.
Huge chains of corruption. Frost Force ward hops away. It does not save him. Aspect finds the kill. And yet again, as Frost Force dies before an objective, that's going to be EG benefiting from it. They're going to get this Rift Herald as a result.
This is exactly what EGP needs to do at this point of the game. TSM slightly playing into their win con, but EGP playing it out clean. I know their mid-game, the reason they took 5th, 6th in Proving Grounds last split was really thanks to their mid-game and how they played around the first Rift Herald. I thought they were doing a much better job of doing playing around that objective than most of the Academy teams that we had. A lot of that magic was built around Mist, the support last split, who his teammates credited a lot for his shot calling and ability to call out the right Rift Herald plays. And I think that's been one of the reasons that EGP hasn't really picked up at the same point they were at. But it's great to see them making those mid-game decisions at this point of the game, TJ, because this is the plays they need to be making with this comp where they're a little bit behind the curve they want to be at, but they're making the right plays to try and catch back up and give themselves a favorable game state to try and win this one early.
Here's a second look at how that broke out. Just, I'm going to say a little bit of mispositioning from Donbray, which is unfair, but if you're walking out of that mid, and this is just a tiny nitpick, but if you're walking out of that mid position as the support, you want to make sure that your jungler isn't exposed to the chains of corruption.
Yeah, they weren't holding hands there, you know? You gotta hold hands on the way out.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Is that
all
language?
good players hold hands.
Is that language you use with your team? You tell your team to hold hands.
Actually, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, like, hey, you guys
That's
could be
really
holding
cute.
hands here if you go through this
That's
choke.
incredible.
It's a good one, you know, a little team bonding.
Yeah. Something you can practice physically if your desks are close together. Gorka here in the mid lane as TSM have no recourse but to spread out across the map, play the wave state. EG, from a somewhat staggered early game, have found 2 major picks on the Frost Forest, turned those both into objectives, and taken solid control of this game state.
A 2k gold lead for them 1 minute before this Dragon. It's also enabled EGP to get river control. If you glance over that river, all the vision control is in the hands of EGP. And going up against a Zoe, a Nidalee, a Varus with death sentences coming out from Skytech as well on the Thresh. This is a difficult scenario for TSM, but they feel like they're pressured to try and contest this third dragon because, once again, Soul Point would be very valuable for EGP. So let's see if TSM can try and navigate this or find the flank. Eclipse is doing a good job of managing sides, but he doesn't have any place to TP yet.
I just saw a sick dodge of a death sentence from Frost Forest. He was maybe a second away from getting hooked, which would have been disastrous before another major objective. Currently split play across the map, as you do have the two top laners dueling up top. Both have TPs. EG beginning to set up here around this dragon. And Eclipse joins the team on foot. So Eclipse is here without needing to blow TP.
Surdy
Surdy has just blown his TP.
And this positioning from Aspect is so good. Look at how he's using the wall to accentuate the bubble range. And then poke, but now Frost Force going for the flank. Here comes a fight. That's a beautiful DP ult.
Oh, Frost Force instantly rooted! Instantly rooted by the Chains of Corruption! Saskio stops him dead in his tracks! You're not going to get the Varus in that fight! And EG managed to shut down Frost Force, blow up Don Bray. They're going to get this Drake. That was incredible from Saskio.
The E-Sub makes the big play against his old teammate, Frost Force, from Winthrop, as the flash, the Chains of Corruption landing prevents any Lee Sin combo, any chance of TSM fighting that Drake from coming through. And EGP, despite a few skirmishes going wayward early, their mid-game's made up for it. And this is such a deadly setup against TSM with its composition, because you just cannot deal with the Varus arrows, the spears, the bubbles, the poke coming out from all the members of EGP. It forces TSM to go early, and when they aren't able to find the engage, they aren't synced up quite perfectly together. Despite a beautiful ultimate from Eclipse, they just cannot find the play.
Wow.
And that flash from Saskio, it just bought him the space he needed.
That's so cleverly set up by TSM. They go through a lot of trouble to get Saskio low, poke him down with Doxa over the wall. They already have the mark from Frost Force, which is probably the impetus for the play. And then Saskio just says, no, thank you. Net result, another Drake over to EGP. They're going to summon that Rift Herald as far back as they can just to buy time. It's going to walk all the way down the mid lane and take the mid turret.
EGP continue to grow their lead. That mid turret, very important for them, as it will enable them to step further into the jungle of TSM. Ooh, nice auto there from Don.
That was nice, yeah.
Yeah, that's real nice. Denies the second charge. Young 17-year-old Sport making a couple nice plays here.
Got them zoomer hands.
Yeah, he's going to have to make a few more if they want to get back into the game. But talking about the TSM side, is we do have a bit of a lull in the game. Something that Gorka spoke really highly of. The fact that he said that, you know, working with Donbray, it's the first rookie support I've really worked with. And it's been a different task for me to really help to work with him grow. Just doing VOD reviews, just doing together. But he spoke very highly of how receptive he's been, the natural mechanics that this player has, and he feels like just teaching Donbray has helped him learn a lot about the support role and more about his role as well. I'm going to return to the action because Doxa might be in trouble here as EGP are rotating. But he's the bomb.
Oh. You know who's not fine? Donbray. Again chained down. He gets away. The Ignite will take him down. Ooh, big trouble though for Tomio. Frost Force mistimes the resonating strike. And a lantern from Skysec will allow survival, but Surdy is overextended again, and Frost Forest punishes that. He walks through the backside because Surdy's gone far too far forward. Saskio goes down to Frost Forest this time round. Surdy just gets focused down by 3 players. A very strange miscommunication from EGP as the second half of that fight just kind of falls apart.
And that's a gap that TSM can use to close the gold lead, as they're going to have to avoid getting picked off themselves. Uh-oh, here comes the chain.
Frost Forest,
yeah,
just does a Surdy, walks way too far forward in the top lane, and will go down. He's going to be the...
You got to do Surdy like that, man.
I'm sorry, Surdy.
You know what? That Croc was just trying to get as far away from the river as possible. He was experiencing freedom outside his natural habitat of the river. And got caught out in the public eye a little bit too much.
I think we're definitely seeing just the freshness of these two rosters, as we're seeing incredible mechanical outplays, some really clean team fights, and then we're also seeing the moments where the comms aren't quite online, where you see that these are newer rosters that don't quite have the team synergy sorted out. Because Frostforce goes in here, is in trouble, but this play is over at this point. Once Tomio gets out, it is over. But Surdy doesn't get that comm, and Saskio doesn't have the information about where Frostforest is. And those two miscommunications cost him everything.
A bit split, and that is going to make it harder for this setup. And, oh, good flash from Skytech, but Saskio's
sick
caught.
Flash, but Saskio's in trouble again, and he'll just be executed. Very well played by TSM. The team fights they were trying to set up during the early game coming online in the second half here. Frostforce still looking. He knows that Dominus is about to fade, but won't be tempted.
This is a big fight for EGP. I think that the fact they're only up 500 gold, securing this soul is a big deal. And Saskio is not going to be back in time, so they have to give it. And this territory is all TSM. A big pick coming out from Doxa, who now has that death cap finish. And the skirmishing continues as EGP, they know they have to force here. They're trying to push.
4v3 TSM advantage. Stasis from Tomio will be red. John Brave finds a mid-time though.
Doxa's
a huge flank comes out. Surdy trades 1-for-1, shutting down Doxa. You do have the respawn from Saskio. He's on his way. Frostforce zoning in. Trouble for Surdy, but he's going to survive, and now they've got Eclipse forced to eat his own fruits to stay alive. Chains of Corruption will land onto Donbray. Here is Surdy stepping up. Saskio, he's got the kill. Donbray's dead. Sleep, it's landed. They've got the kills. EG fight at a man disadvantage, and they have turned everything around.
And Surdy, he overextended in the last fight, TJ, but you could just see how much work he was doing zoning off the members of TSM Amatuer and giving his poke members the space to make the plays happen. That was a beautiful team fight from Surdy, as Aspect's just keeping Frostforce busy, trying to prevent him from even walking in here. It's going to be Ocean Soul for EGP.
Doxa tries his best, but the work Aspect was doing pays off. Frostforce unable to get close, and now, very low, as Aspect just dances around him. He'll flash to order the wave for healing, which is in itself very clean, but still goes down. The mechanics on display here, Covey, are mind-blowing.
I'm so glad that Aspect's showing up in this game on the Zoe, a pick that we haven't seen in a while, but we're seeing why he picked it, as he's comfortable in this landing matchup. He knows how to play it with little to no resources. Look at the work that Aspect's been doing in this game.
Just the mechanical density of this game is maybe the highest of any amateur game I've ever cast. There are so many outplays being deployed constantly.
It's been scrappy.
Made all the better by, the scrappy nature. We're getting more opportunities for outplays.
And this is just Surdy putting on a clinic of how to buy space and how to buy time on Renekton. As first off, he just hunts down Doxa on his own. A mistake coming out from the young talent of TSM, and then look at him buy time. Look at him buy space, the stopwatch. The barrel goes down from Eclipse. He is able to buy enough time to dash out of it to get another Cole to meek off, and then that's when Saskio and Aspect are able to join. Chains of Corruption connect, and they just hunt people down one by one. And Aspect, this bubble is beautiful. On to Ezreal, as Ocean Soul now for EGP. They needed that to bridge the scale, and they needed that to give themselves a chance in this game, TJ, and now they have a huge advantage throughout the rest of this one.
Yeah, Ocean Soul locked in. That's everything that was necessary for EGP to get control of this game. I don't feel comfortable saying it's theirs yet, but it is theirs to lose.
And as this one continues, TSM, they're down 4K, they're on Ocean Soul. Their only way back, TJ, is really going to be off the back of Doxa. I think that he has to go glass cannon and just go for one-shots at this point.
Mid lane. Here's your play. Here's your chance. Doxa roaming in. Chains of Corruption will land onto Donbray as the trap that EGP were setting is sprung. TSM with the Baron in the hands of EGP. They just can't leave their own base. TSM are forced back. normally in these situations you can sort of poke away at and exhaust the HP of the people that are sieging you. But of course with Ocean Soul, that's just not going to happen.
Going up against Forest and Lily Zoe too, I think it's going to be the only thing that's going to be happening there is to your own HP, as we're seeing the arrows, the bubbles, the spears, the death sentences all fly in as TSM have to see these objectives. And they have to be intelligent about where they pick to fight this one. So I think also, I mean, they aren't even winning the side lane anymore, right? That Ocean Soul for Renekton, he could just consistently trade, consistently stay in the fight, and outmatch Eclipse. As Saskio gonna take that Lantern to defend himself from a potential combo coming out from Frost Force. He doesn't have Flash, but can use those cannon minions to try and tunnel his way in there. As
Don't play thinking. Oh my lord.
Okay.
An instant response.
Well,
okay. That's probably the game. Johnson does go down. Gurka scared back by a long-range arrow. That was beautiful stuff there from Tomio. Moments earlier, I was going to praise Donbray for really diving in to take a shot for Gurka, but it won't matter with the LeBlanc gone. Here in the middle of the map, you have Frost Force and Eclipse trapped underneath the turret that's about to be sieged. They will survive, able to walk away. But we're still 20 seconds away from the heaviest hitter over on TSM, Doxa respawning.
And we're going to have to see if TSM can buy enough time to wait for Dox. I think this will be able to spawn. Let's see if EGP push through, try and take one or two of the next turrets, or take the game. They have Ocean Soul, but sticking around is tough.
Yeah, Saskio in trouble, dive in, chase the corruption, it lands again! Saskio with the same play, flash, ult, he's got the kill, goodbye Frost Forest!
Saskio has been so critical for EGP's success in this. The E-sub coming in, the collegiate champion on a new roster, just doing his job so well in this game, enabling EGP to try and win the game around him. As here we go, last fight. TSM are done.
Dive in, Donbray tries something, and he instantly regrets it. He's gone, and so are TSM in game one of this best of three. You have Doxa trying to work his magic around the side, but there's simply too large a wave, too many players. And there we go. It's a fight, but EG take it in 29 minutes.
And I really want to credit Aspect in that game, TJ, as I feel like that skirmish where he landed that bubble on Gorica, he survived the lane, everything that he was able to do and put together. Once again, this is someone that doesn't get a lot of resources, doesn't get a lot of help mid, but does so much with absorbing pressure, with still having an impact on the game. And against a player the caliber of Doxa at this level, he held his own. And he really was very impactful in helping his team win the game. I cannot describe Aspect in enough words and speak highly enough. I think that he was spectator, but really put together a good performance.
Aspect played great, and it was kind of the combination of Aspect and Saskio that earned out the lead, which is not where we expected this to come from. We saw and I think not where TSM expected this to come from, because they very deliberately were fighting Surti and Tomio, shutting down that dynamic duo, and it's Aspect and the substitute Saskio who step up to the plate and knock game one out of the park for EG. One thing's for sure though, this series is going to be a brawl, and we've got 2 more games still to come. I'll wager money on it. We're going to throw over to quick break, come back with the desk, break it all down, set it up. Don't cost me any money. We'll be right back.
I told you, each evil geniuses Nidalees are cracked on a whole other level. And I mean, I did not expect that Tomio was going to bust it out game one. I thought it was coming in this series since there's a lot of Lee Sin play, and that matchup in itself is super fun and volatile to play out. But game one, Tomio said, yo, Surdy, slam the croc, and I'm going the jungle cat. And we're throwing spears and chucking things out, and we'll have to dive a little bit further in how Evil Genius's composition not only worked out so well, but how the players themselves, the key pokers in that comp, made it to success, bringing in such success. But we have to go first back to a little bit of the early advantages that TSM Amateur were kind of securing themselves, and what happened with it here, Jolly?
Honestly, a big part of where there was a little bit of a falter, kind of going back to what we were seeing in the previous games here with C9 Academy, was really just not being able to capitalize on these win conditions that they try to set up for themselves. And they did a good job of it there with Eclipse on the gangplank, getting good early pressure, but then they made that play, towards the bottom side of the map, sending the teleport down, and at that point, Surdy just had full control of the lane. It was, I mean, a good 20 to 30 creep above, past the 20-minute mark consistently for the next 10 minutes. And that really took TSM Amateur's wind out of their sails. And then after that, it certainly felt like they were just kind of floating at that point. They were making mistakes, so hopefully very easy to recover from, things that they can acknowledge and say, okay, just clean it up real quick, because that took a pretty bad turn for TSM.
Yeah, and they kind of played right into the hands of Evil Genius's Prodigies and what they want to do, because there is a lot of moments where, as you said before, that teleport play stunted Eclipse's lead that they had momentarily been able to stabilize a bit as Surdy went for the level 1 dive. Yeah, Tomio came in and they was able to even it back up, but then things were kind of somewhat salvageable there. But then Eclipse losing out on 2-3 waves, allowing Surdy to catch back up, and then the side lane management from TSM Amateur towards that mid game seemed to go awry, as suddenly Surdy was up 67 CS around the 15-minute mark, and then during that time, as we get closer to the third dragon, we see Evil Genius's Prodigies composition come into full effect off of the spikes of their mythics being completed here, Rebel.
Yeah, this composition was designed really heavily around poke, and the biggest thing is, like, while later game you definitely have like Ezreal Gangplank to rely on, it's super easy to, on the side of EGP, be able to assassinate a bunch of characters who simply don't have the ability to soak damage. So even though you're not going to have the same kind of scaling that GP Ezreal might, the damage on the way in is enough to kind of dissuade Dawnbray from really being that primary engage Frost Force in the same way, even on top of Gangplank ultimate. So you'll see in a play like this where Frost Force is able to get onto primary target with GP ultimate, but like he just gets eviscerated on his way in. The same thing happens with Dawnbreak. It was one Q that had come out during the course of this fight that really had driven home everything. You'd taken away the two primary sources of damage, and now it's like, okay, Gangplank, Ezreal, and you got your LeBlanc as well for some assassination potential, but all of these members have so much immediate pressive damage that, like, how do you actually get into this team, which is the problem, is like accessing this damage was the hardest part of TSM, and it kind of ruined some of this potential scaling, potential setup that they would have had for the later stages of the game. I also don't want to talk about it just because, like, I do want to talk about it a lot. Aspect smurfed on that Zoe. I was screaming during the play where he hit like 8 in a row, and I just cannot possibly like fanboy any harder about this guy, because he has been insane for like the last year, and like that fight where he just took over pretty much entirely and got them towards that 4th dragon.
You're not the only one that has been fanboying over Aspect. I mean, Cubby, who on the caster desk right now, when I've talked about Evil Genius's Prodigies in extension and length with him and Smacks, Cubby has always been an pro Aspect fan and someone that has always been a huge proponent of kind of pushing his name because yes, Aspect and for a composition or a team from Evil Genius's Prodigies, we have to remember back in the spring, back when they had Danny, for any LCS fans knowing that he is currently kicking ass up on the LCS stage right now with the main squad. He started out on the Evil Genius's Prodigies roster known as Shiro at the time, and for them, the main stars on this roster were Tomio, Danny, and then Surdy, depending if the meta favored carry-style top laners, which, Surdy was despite a few blunders, Tomio being able to get him back into that lane, and then Surdy really just soaking up so much damage, being a huge disruptor in those team fights once they were able to lock down onto TSM Amateur members. But for Aspect, he has always been someone that has been a role player. He's someone just filling whatever the team has needed for the time being, and it's kind of awesome to see Aspect have a little bit of a pop-off performance on this Zoe because, as Cubby mentioned before on the broadcast, Zoe's not necessarily a pick that we see in the meta too often right now, but it was his counter pick of choice going into Doxa's LeBlanc, and even though Doxa did have a pretty scary early game to potentially threaten the members of Evil Genius's Prodigies, he was able to stop him. And now as we're getting ready for this game too, Jolly, I want to kind of throw the ball to your court here and determining, like, what are TSM Amateur's next steps in trying to figure out what plan of attack do they want to go with against Evil Geniuses after coming off of Game 1?
Well, they do have side selection, so they're likely going to pick their red side. We've seen a lot of focus on that to try to get, giving up first pick there. Honestly, just looking at this roster, I'd love to see Eclipse pull out, try to get out the Riven. If that's a possibility, or something like the Fiora is incredibly strong right now, so some real big power picks for the top side, because there was a little bit of Surdy kind of feeling overconfident towards the beginning, so if they can capitalize on that instead of investing jungle focus there, and investing jungle focus towards the mid or the bot side, I think that's going to work out best for TSM Amateurs in this next matchup.
And Rebel, I kind of want to let you chime in a little bit as well for this draft pick, because TSM Amateur, as Jolly has already pointed out, if we put more focus towards Doxa, who was kind of a huge investment for the majority of the early game kills, maybe this time if you're able to protect the lead better in the mid game and accelerate it for Game 2.
I want to see harder engage if they're going to run something back what they did in the previous game, something necessary and something that can soak damage, because that was another big proponent. Is like if you go Rakan is good at roaming and very early in the game. He didn't have a ton of impact across the map, and then it's like, okay, when you get to the point where you become primary engage, why are you not playing Leona? Why are you not playing Alistar? Because like those can at least soak 2 spears instead of 1 spear before being pushed out of a combat or something like that. So that would be a nice change, at least a little bit. I expect a little bit more also, just because I do like Doxa's LeBlanc. I think it's amazing and affecting the map. I just want lanes that get attacked easily. So something with more CC topside, I think is my other like really big caveat. And banning away Tomio's Nidalee also might have to be at least one diagnosis. I do want to throw back also, there was the other pick that was at the time, which was the Graves, which has been popping back up, and it would be awesome to see a second Eclipse with like more lethality and then like the Dark Harvest for Tomio yet again. But that might be asking too much to get a Nidalee and a Graves performance out of him in one series. So.
Speaking on that Graves pick, I think it's something that both Tomio and Frost Force have played. I'd give the edge of experience over to Tomio on that one, as we've seen him in the carry meta season where Graves and Nidalee were kind of 2 of his most picked. I think during that time it was more of the fleet footwork with the shield bow, more of a lifesteal build. But if you're playing it like XU, who just straight up kind of Chad built it with Eclipse into Serpent's Fang, I mean that was a huge treat. Honestly, I'm a fan of more awesome and fun jungle picks coming from both of these junglers here. But for TSM Amateur, if it's not just a fun jungle pick, it needs to be one that helps them win, because they definitely want to move on to semifinals, whereas for Evil Geniuses Prodigies, one game away from clinching out a semifinals appearance against the winner of Zoos and AoE Esports, as TJ and Cubby, the Plaid lads, are once again ready to commentate the next game of the series.
Rate my plaid, Cubby, because I'm insecure. I just found it in a closet. It's like gray. It's got a hood. Is it valid?
Honestly, the hood makes it like a 7 out of 10. Maybe, I mean, depending on what brand it is, maybe that's the next collab with 100 Thieves.
Oh, maybe this is 100 Thieves. Yeah, I've got it early.
Yeah, and then you get like triple the price.
Is that real? I thought, wouldn't it be worth more? It's time for game number 2 between EG and TSM as we do head into our pick ban. I want to have this conversation. How comfortable are you with Saskio's champion pool? Because he is a substitute. We were both peering over his solo queue players. He has been grinding recently. Do you think it is worth banning out the Varus after that game 1?
I would say yes, just because I think that's also a linchpin that really helped EG build an entire comp around that, right? Because they took the Varus and said, all right, you know what? We're going to take Nidalee, we're going to take Zoe, we're going to take a Thresh, we're going to build a poke and disengage comp with 30 buying space. I thought it was really well thought out from EGP. And I want to see TSM at least force them to do something different. Don't get beat by the same thing twice, as I think TSM had some nice moments in that, but when the objectives came and when push came to shove, EGP setups were much better.
It's a different ban. They target Tomio's Nidalee, which was good that game. We saw the mechanical strength of Tomio and Surti as well, but I also think we saw TSM handle that very well. They shut down the early game of Tomio and Surti on the top side, so it's interesting to me that the ban is targeted towards that, as opposed to, I think, Aspect and Saskio, who brought back that game in a big way.
And, I mean, Saskio, he just dodging out on every single engage that Frost Force was going for on him was critical. And the fact that because he was able to flash away and then Surti just on the Renekton was just buying space, just being annoying for TSM and enabling the cooldowns for the poke abilities to come back up for his teammates. That was the big difference for EGP, and no Nidalee, looks like that doesn't matter. EGP already setting up to build the same composition. And I want to see how TSM change things up here. I think a big change for them actually might be around that Thresh pick, TJ. I think they lock Thresh here and try and pair that with Aphelios right off the bat. That could be a response they could look for. And hold that the block pick, as Doxa was good at it, but the response from Aspect was even better.
So, we do get the Lee Sin again. We do get the Varus, Renekton again. We got Nezreal again.
Here comes the block.
And I think you're right. Yeah. So it's fascinating to see this, because it raises, like, the only major question it does raise is what's coming out here for Tomio. If you allow this jungle pick to slip second rotation, it's going to get heavily banned. So EG need to lock in a jungler now.
This is a Tomio special. Could be the Graves. He got 2 AD on this patch. Tomio's very good at it. And you can do a full clear in 3:15 if you start red, so it's going to be the lock-in for Tomio as he's going to more comfort for him. We saw the hands in the Nidalee, going to have to see the hands in the Graves now.
And Graves is very good right now at exactly what Tomio wants to do, which is influence lanes early. And if you can get that snowball rolling where you're getting into lanes early, then Graves becomes very good at snowballing as a character, and can be doing a ton of damage in the mid-lane game. So, I'm excited to see Tomio's zoomer hands on this.
Also, something that I like that Rebel pointed out was the fact that TSM had a squishy comp with Rakan. And if you go lethality on Graves with that bonus 2 AD, it sounds weird, but the faster clear, the fact you can snowball a little bit quicker, get the gold from the camps faster, Eclipse Graves is something to be worried about. And I'm curious to see if Graves or Tomio goes for that, or goes for something like an Immortal Shield Bow with a Drain Tank, as it seems like a rinse and repeat of last game. I do like the Zoe ban. I feel like that's paying some much well-deserved respect over to Aspect. But now I'm curious. I feel like it's going to be a Syndra from Aspect. as it's a go-to for him, something that you can play into the block, and they need magic damage. So let's see how TSM respond, and if they actually grab a tank here to try and survive some of the poke coming out from EGP, as looks like Leona might be the adaptation for them.
Leona's doing very well right now as a character in solo queue and professional play. So the full ban taking away TK, taking away Nautilus, but not being able to take that Leona away is somewhat impotent. We are going to get a GP up for the top lane. And here we go. Your question. What does Aspect bring to the table?
My guess is Syndra. We'll see if he goes for something else. If you want to get really frisky, it could go for like a Galio. I would like Lulu too, the polymorph, enabling Tomio on the Graves. We talked about how Aspect really wants to enable Tomio, and Frost Forest wants to enable Doxa. Leads to a pretty fun mid-jungle duo, and Aspect's going to be doing just that as he goes for the supported mid laner, and the R5 pick will be that Lulu.
So there we go. Lulu into the mid lane. We talked about how Aspect wants to play more of a supportive style last game, and we didn't see a whole bunch of it just because the top side got hard focused and Aspect suddenly became one of the team's carries. But he did all of that with no real presence from Tomio in the early game, with a ton of focus actually being thrown his way, meaning he was very behind in gold. Aspect is very good at doing a lot with a little, and Lulu will amplify those strengths, allowing him to, you know, boost up Tomio, boost up Sasuke, whoever the big carry who's under threats in these fights is. It'll be another answer to the dive that Frost Forest and Doxa are throwing out.
And if it is the poke Varus, which we expect, it should be him enabling Tomio. And I'm curious to see if Tomio goes for a drain tank build with the Lulu. Could be rather lethal. And I like the Lulu in this scenario, TJ, because the polymorph onto the block, onto a Lee Sin who have to go in to be effective, could be very powerful, and EG have tools to turn fights off the polymorph that comes in from Aspect. So we're going to have to see if EGP can communicate that, if they can capitalize on that as the game goes on.
One big thing to take away from this, there's yet more CC for TSM. They trade out the Rakan for a Leona. That, of course, gives them the frontline tank, but it also gives them more initiation tools for the team, because Leona's Solar Flare is longer ranged and less risky than a full dive from a Rakan. So I want to see if that produces more opportunities and more access to Sasuke and Tomio, which felt like where TSM fell apart in the late game. They had some very good team fights, but once Doxa wasn't able to one-shot Sasuke, once they didn't have the presence to just delete Tomio before every fight, EG were coming out very consistently on top. So the addition of these CC tools gives a different answer. TSM don't need to one-shot them, they can sustain CC the key targets over on the EG side.
And this is the fun of a series like this, TJ, the fact that you can make these micro-adaptions, right? The rinse and repeat draft from both teams, only changing up one pick, or three picks total, I should say. One for TSM and two for EG. It makes things kind of fun, as both teams, they say, you know what, last game, I know like TSM, they dropped, but hey, we were only down 1k gold against their comp early. But we feel like that was a win, that we can repeat this if we just have a tank on our side. If we take away Nidalee, EGP, they see that, they say, you know what, you took away a couple of our answers, but this is our next best pair, and let's see if we can do it now, as we spawn in for Game 2.
Game 2 of a very close series thus far. TSM won the entire first half of game number 1, fell apart when it came to team fighting, thanks to the heroic efforts of Sasuke and Aspect. Here in game number 2, TSM, as you say, have made some adjustments and are going to look, especially, I think, cute little ducky, to repeat the experience of game number 1 towards the top side.
And what I'm curious about is...
Skytech.
They laid a trap. They did the scouting. Skytech's in trouble.
Skytech walks in, perma-stunned, Flay comes out, Skytech's in trouble. Doxa ignores Aspect, full focus on getting that first kill. They found the second stun, and first blood is handed over to TSM's mid laner. Doxa's got an early gold boost.
We talked about the changes in pick ban, but what about the changes in how we play out the strategy? As they went for the same ward in game 1, TSM, they do the scouting, they come back, and they punish this time around as Gorka also going to drag out the patience on the blue buff to force Tomio to reset. That slows down the 315 clear, and it was a good start for TSM last game, but this is an even better start for them this game, TJ.
The same ward 2 games in a row? Not against TSM. Skyzak walks up here and just gets absolutely shredded. And I really appreciate the work they put in to make sure that Doxa gets this kill. Because that's a very, very good start for TSM. One of their problems last game was Doxa did get a little hampered. Didn't get off to the snowballing start you want a LeBlanc to have. And wasn't as effective as you'd want Doxa to be in the late game.
And look at the pathing already from Frostforce, kind of shifting our focus over the jungler. As he is not going for that full clear on the bot side. He realizes that because Graves had a reset, that he might have an opening, have a play available. So he's going for the single target camps. If you're Lee Sin, you can get up in the face of Graves early and potentially turn the matchup. I want to see if he tries to go for that, as I think Tomio somewhat understands this. He's going for that red buff. As the lane states have been changed from EGP. We don't have the crash coming out from Surdy this game because he realizes that Tomio's behind. He has to play a little bit more respectfully. And EGP already on the back foot early due to TSM's better level 1 plan.
Wave crash down bottom. Gorka goes back to base, so Donbray rotates up from the bottom lane. All of this around the vignette of Frost Forest as he starts brawling against Mesios. That's going to be picked up by Tomio. Tomio got the scuttler, and he gets away. Surdy steps down. Frost Force in for the fight again.
Aspect's dead.
Aspect rooted, and Donbray hits a stellar Zenith Blade over the edge. That's going
They didn't know that Donbray was there, so that flash from Aspect going over the wall, followed up upon by Donbray. And because it's an Ezreal, because it's early levels, they can't really do anything to punish Gorka. So the only move that EGP's bot lane have is to try and take the second crab. Deny that from Frost Forest, as Tomio will properly deny the Raptors and is a little bit ahead from this early game. But the rest of the map for his team, slightly in shambles here, TJ.
Yeah, definitely. This is a very good start for TSM. I love the rotate up from Donbray, full committing to the roam from bottom lane once they have the opportunity. That's the kind of taking advantage of your lane state that separates proactive supports from those that just kind of exist in lane.
And another ramification of that level 1 was how Surdy was playing out his lane. Because keep in mind, Surdy had to let Eclipse crash because Tomio wasn't going to be up top in time. That's another part of the reason that this play was able to happen for TSM, because Eclipse was there first on the play instead of Surdy because of how he had to play out that lane state. So good play coming out from TSM, and this is the fun of micro adaptations in draft, TJ, because if the game plays out similar, you can just change up your gameplay. We've seen TSM make the right changes in this one and net themselves a 1K gold lead early.
The one I can't say. Oh, dive in, flay away. Donbray cancelled out. Skyzak still focused down and misses the death sentence. Go, Gorka very nearly finds the kill. The Ignite won't finish it off.
Frost Forest
is in the area though, and Saskio's now all alone behind the turret, so he's going to keep getting poked and prodded at. Tomio on the rotate here. I think his location is known because Frost Forest just checked out the jungle and found that there wasn't any camps left, so they should have an inkling what's up there.
As we take a little bit of a breather, a rare one that we have in this matchup, TJ, as
Some
Sox
good
was
League
trying
Legends.
to pull the wave, get Aspect baited in. Not going to be successful, but I think the big key, once again, for EGP is that we still think that they have a comp that spikes earlier. And I think that stacking up the dragons, that it's never a bad thing to do. It might be the only reprieve they can find in this game, as they are under siege across the map. They are behind early. And that dragon stacking, just like it did last game, could save them in this one.
It did save them in last game. Oh, sorry, Tomio roaming up here. Good smoke bomb. He's found Eclipse. Eclipse does have a flash. Won't spend it. gets executed by Tomio.
Tomio's Graves is so clean. You can see how he used the Q on that mini wall. And now just helping Surdy shove that wave in to get him a clean reset. As I also really like how Skytech's responding on the map. Because once again, we saw the move from Dawnbray. The fact that it's Ezreal versus Varus. Both ADs can farm from high range. As Skytech is hovering Aspect, helping him crash in lanes. He doesn't have flash, so having that emergency lantern behind him. Even though no play breaks out, I feel like it's the right move from Skytech, and now that the wave is crashing and there could be a dive coming in from TSM, potentially they want to set it up, he rotates back, starts to help Saskio manage this wave as they're trying to trim it and prevent any lethal play from coming in from TSM.
Yeah, very, very good response from EGP on the top side. And it brings things back a little bit. What I was about to say was last game, of course, EG didn't just get back into the game because of their dragons. They got the dragons because they were able to punish some mistakes. What a flash from Meteos. Keeps them alive as Dawnbray overextends. Cannon Barrage will come across the map, but a huge death sentence will find the kill. Aspect claiming credit for that one whilst trying to run away from Frost Forest. The wild growth ends, and so the kill will be passed over. And Doxa absolutely deletes Skytech. True shot, cutting off their retreat and ensuring that kill is possible. Very well played by TSM. They walk away 2 for 1. A big advantage in this fight.
And Aspect still not having flash means that he's not able to escape the chains, the play coming in from TSM. That's why he goes down once again. As Surdy? Okay.
We are fine.
He knows his limits.
I mean, last game, that was very specifically the problem, but this time around, we're fine. Oh, Dominus pops. He's on ward, though.
Yeah, he knows that as the minions are doing. He's just going to use this to call to make the wave and just get out nice and clean.
Or is he? Taking a turret shot on the push. There we go.
You gotta keep it interesting, you know?
Yeah, sure.
The big key here with this play, TJ, is the fact that Lulu and Tomio get split because of Frost Force. And Dawnbray committing that flash, yes, he goes down early, but by keeping the Lulu split from Tomio on the Graves, they can never utilize the combo, they can never empower the Graves to step up to do the damage necessary to catch up in these fights. As going back to live, Surdy, the fact he was able to crash and threaten TP means that EGP were able to get the dragon. Oh, when Skytech tried to flash behind Saskia, wasn't able to clear it. We saw it, we missed that off cam. But a beautiful LeBlanc play from Doxa, known for his LeBlanc and Fed yet again in this one.
Known for his LeBlanc and Fed yet again over the course of the tournament. This is the first time in this series that we've seen Doxa's LeBlanc really thriving. The changes they made around the composition, having that extra tank, having a better early game, adding up here. Certainly denies Eclipse that barrel. EGP, like you say, based on the tempo, didn't manage to get the Drake, so this is going to be, yet again, EGP starting to stack these Drakes in a game they are ostensibly behind in.
Once again, it's only 1.5k gold, but we like TSM's comp more as the game goes on. The saving grace, though, for EGP, just like last game, TJ, it's going to be that one item spike once Lulu gets the Moonstone or the Shirelia's Battle Song as Tomio. Oh, good dodge. Oh, he's dead.
Very dead. Cannon Barrage lights him up like a Christmas tree. And Doxa just finds the follow-up. Frost Forest getting the kill yet again alongside the Rift Herald, which he slayed moments earlier.
I feel bad like not hyping up the 2 chains and the gas over the wall from Tomio's ult for Doxa, but we're just so used to seeing him do this on the block.
Do you want to just do it now? You can just get all the hype out.
Nah, we'll do it the next time he does it.
Alright. Saskio flashes away.
Oh, this could be turned.
The solar flare, but here comes the TP. Skytech's got the lantern to reduce the distance, and Dawnbray's played closer. Very good play from Skytech. Very good support matchup here on the bottom line.
Win-win for EGP across the map. Aspect uses his TP to pick up that play, and Tomio is able to eat the mid-wave, even pulls it to help out Aspect. Doxa will take the reset. We'll lose more creeps for the fact that Tomio was able to pull it. as he goes to secure the crab, but his bot camps, and EGP still find themselves behind, but are pulling off some plays that are bringing themselves back in this one.
Yeah, you can see that gold lead we highlighted a moment ago just sort of shrinking, which is not what you want if you're TSM Amateur.
And this is the point of the game where any gold lead for TSM is good. The fact they're in this state, they're further ahead than what the gold says. Oh boy. Good night.
Oh dear.
He's got flash up in a sec.
Decent amount of HP and flash, as you say. Stunned. Here comes Tomio underneath the turret. Will die. There is maybe the potential for something more there as you... Saskia roaming in, but it doesn't look like EG are going to go for it. Aspect spends the wild growth defensively, but also kind of baiting the play. Here comes Meteos. Doxa on the run round the side. This is Tomio. Woo, very long range. He finds the tag. Tomio sets it up, and Aspect knocks it down. Saskia, in the meantime, in huge trouble here as the...
Oh, Surdy.
Rift Herald comes in. TP out from Surdy to try and save the day. He's instantly full stun, full comboed. It doesn't matter. Surdy goes in, kicked away. Donbray very low, but he's kept Saskia alive. Finally, Surdy falls, but Donbray and Frostforest are incredibly low, and Surdy has survived.
And the flash from Donbray, if we get a replay... He actually buffered the stun, was still able to flash, and because he was able to get that flash off, he dodged out on the piercing arrow from Saskia. So it saved his life, prevented a reset or a takedown coming in for Surdy with the rune. And that's why he melted early, as an attempted play from EGP goes sour as, alright, we're going to get a whole host of replays. This game has no signs of showing down. Skytech, he doesn't have flash up at this point, but he's waiting for it. He's just trying to dodge out on the next skill shot, using his flash, and just wasn't quite able to dodge out on the Sonic Wave. Then we get the next replay, where Aspect uses his ult to buffer the W of Doxa, negate the damage, as the knockup prevents that from going through, as Doxa gets chased down. And then we have another one, where Surdy... I don't know if we're going to get the Surdy one or not, but it was a really good flash from Don.
Better. Yeah!
Alright, here we go.
3 for 3.
More
Let's
replays.
Go, baby.
LPL style, baby. We don't stop any action here. As, watch this flash from Donbray. He's going to buffer the stun from Surdy. Right here. And then the arrow, piercing arrow misses because he buffered that stun. As we have more plays, more action already. Donbray going in.
Donbray starting off this fight, but getting pulled into 4 players. It's not a great start. Donbray is dead. EGP with the opening kill. Wild growth is spent on the Surdy to stall out this front line. And Frostforest doesn't have a way in, but Gorka is able to weave his shots through and take down Tomio. A positive trade for TSM off the back of Gorka.
The fact that that's a 1-for-1 for TSM, very good. That was a good setup for EGP and also prevents them from snowballing this into the second dragon. They need to keep on stacking up the dragons to get that soul, try and bridge the scaling gap. But because they lose out Tomio, they lose out the HP battle, they're going to have to cede the tempo, the priority. Eclipse gets that top line turret, pushes TSM to a 3k gold lead, and now TSM are going to have first say on the map to get this dragon.
Okay, we might have missed the end of this replay, so we'll start with this. And then we're going to go to the second replay that we missed the first half of because we were watching the end of this replay.
Yeah, alright, the flash buffer from Donbray was very clean. As Surdy was going for one more call to Meek, wasn't able to get that cooldown up quite yet. And we go back to live where Frostforest and TSM, they're looking for this dragon, and I don't think EGP have the positioning on the map to contest. Tomio is going to take us full clear instead. Big win for TSM, buying themselves 5 more minutes. Rolling the Ocean Souls, a little bit unlucky for them, but that's okay as, oh boy, Aspect's caught.
Full combo in, Wild Growth will be spent. Aspect in trouble regardless, but stays ahead of the Sonic Wave. And he'll be able to get to safety. Yeah! We got the replay, baby! Here's
LPL replays! They're really testing me to see if I can grab something from all these. As this setup for EGP, it's good. You have Australia's Battle Song Lulu. You have 4 members here. You're able to buff up Tomio, and I thought Frostforest was going down.
Same.
But Doxa forces the flash from Tomio, and then Gorka weaving in that Mystic Shot. Beautiful. As no one body blocks it. No one was expecting that to land, but Gorka, he had it calculated. He did the damage.
Really, really well done by Gorka.
Yeah.
If we missed anything, say that Raptors take, we could get a replay of that just to really keep the high rolling. Flying out some ideas.
We're going full LPL, man. It's just, we don't slow down.
You know, that's always been one of my favorite parts about Amateur in North America. Because we get to watch them before they've been beaten down by the pro leagues. Because even Academy actually is faster than the LCS. The LCS, you have to like make so few mistakes in lane. Everyone's punished. It's just very slow play as a result of it.
Also, Academy is like best of 2, which I really just feel like takes the pressure off the players. Like, they just send it. And semi-pro, we get the best of series, and they're not as afraid to, you know, send it either, right? You get more vibes.
What you're saying is BO5 every LPL or every LCS game.
Please, God, no.
I want to see
Not every LCS game.
CLG for a best of 5. Anyway, versus 100 Thieves. Rift Herald does go down. That's going to be TSM taking it. You alright there, Cuffy?
Just thinking about casting that matchup. And I'm glad that I'm casting this
We've
one.
done it for League Day.
Oh, here comes a rotate.
Solar Flare does land. That's going to be Tomio. Oh! Chunked by a true shot across the map. Very cleanly done. Chains of Corruption will fly out and slow down the play. Force the cleanse out of Eclipse. But as Gorico arrives, this gets dangerous. Aspect gets away on a flash. Saskio's gone. Another kill to Gorica. He gets 2 in that exchange. And TSM earn out a pretty massive advantage now.
This game's looking pretty tough for EGP, TJ. The fact that TSM, they were able to have that level 1 plan to turn around a couple of these early skirmishes, now have done a good job of snowballing this one forward. Ezreal, Lee Sin, and LeBlanc are all about to be out of control for EGP. And once again in that skirmish, they just keep on splitting up Aspect from Graves, and that's the big difference in this.
Oh! Doxa takes a shot at the kneecaps of Surdy over there in the top lane, and Surdy, I don't think, can close the distance. He runs around the side there, but doesn't find a way to engage. First result.
Say okay.
Yeah! Replay!
So this is a little bit unlucky, the fact that it's just good timing from Donbray, but immediately Eclipse fires everything, and Aspect doesn't have time to rotate over to help Tomio. And he just melts at the hands of the globals from both GP and Ezreal. And from here, the fight's over, right? Saskio, he's a poke champion. He's not doing enough damage in a DPS fight. And he just ends up going down. EGP lose 2, both go over to Gorica as he continues to snowball with TSM Amateur and continue to play for your money on the table, TJ, of this game going to 3.
I told you it would. That's the kind of fight where the TSM comp just thrives in those narrow jungle hallways, because you always can throw so much over the walls. They have so much AoE between the True Shot, the LeBlanc, just being able to dive in, poke big AoE, and of course, not only the GP's barrels, but the global cannon barrage. There's just the kind of fight that TSM are going to want every time, especially now that they have a Leona to frontline and just kind of be a stopgap while those plays are happening.
And you can see EG, even though we talked about the dragon stacking, they lost that 1 dragon. They are really far behind in this game. They feel like they cannot contest it, so they're just going to try and go for a dive here on Eclipse, who denies the wave. Things are going to get awkward here.
Things are awkward as Skytech just kind of walks through the turret, takes 4 shots, and for whatever reason, Tomio's not on the same page. They don't end up going for a turret dive. It's more of a turret walk than anything. And after stretching their legs, things are going poorly for Aspect on the other side of the map. Wild Growth forced defensively, Aspect will survive the experience.
And while this is going on, Free Ocean Dragon for TSM as they continue to check the right boxes to wrap up this game. The Graves and the Lulu combo was just never able to get off the ground and running, TJ. As I want to give a lot of credit to TSM, they did a great job of splitting up that combo in these fights, really focusing on splitting them up. But also Aspect and Tomio, that was really where EGP needed to link up, where they needed the magic of this composition to happen, and they just weren't able to pull it off.
And we saw big Doxa this game, right? And he's still not hit the Rabadons, the late game power, but we saw early game skirmishing Doxa being sizable, being large, being vast, and that was enough as Doxa's dominance of that early game kept Aspect in lane, kept Aspect scared away from the roam necessary to provide that wild growth to Tomio in the fights.
I feel like we just don't have Dokwa, so you can't say, like, in semi-pro as he's playing for TLA, and you just can't say Big Dokes anymore, so you just want to say Big Doxa. Try and fill the void instead.
I mean, that's part of it. The other part of it is that he is sizable.
Yeah,
he's constructed vastly, you know?
As TSM have started this, I think they got around that ward, but
they were
EGP
sided.
still sniffing it out. Oh boy.
Frost Forest was sided, but
Yeah, okay.
it's fine, you know?
That's a lot of damage coming out. Good use of vision control there from TSM, as they're going to probably secure this Baron for free, continue to snowball this game, and wrap this one up.
Can we get a replay of that? Nope. Producer tone? Would that be okay? Baron's going to get picked up.
Just want to see the graves get melted by the solar flare.
What I don't feel like I called it appropriately the first time around, so if we could get a... it would make me happy.
Yeah, alright.
Oh.
Well, tower traded for EGP.
Yeah!
You feel like this game's oh, here we go. This is your chance.
Okay, in, stun, solar flare, he's gone! That's what replays are for. This is real American living, you know?
Real replays are for the play-by-play to get a second chance at analyzing what happened. To be fair, that's about all I would say if I actually had to analyze what was going on. As really good vision manipulation from TSM.
The third time!
This TSM, they're up 9K. We're having a little bit of fun here as this game is all but over, and TSM has put together a very clean one to push this to a third game in this best of 3, TJ. As I really don't see any way EGP can come back from this. They have to find some crazy flank, some crazy play, and I feel like Aspect's going for just that.
Frost Forest, kick him over the wall towards Doxa. Doxa in trouble, though. Didn't really want to meet Aspect. Has to walk away. Tomio is going to get rooted in the meantime, but nothing much will come of it. EGP were indeed roaming up here to try and make something happen, but all they have done is split their forces as Eclipse now shoves through against an undefended turret down bottom. He is going to shred that turret's HP. It is already down to a quarter. It will barely survive his presence on a single wave. Those inhibitor turrets also being threatened in the top lane where Doxa is currently shoving in.
Red team's turret has been destroyed.
TSM using this Baron buff in all 3 lanes accordingly. And at this point, I mean, you picked the comp that scales better. You got really far ahead early. You're up 11k gold at this point. TSM just have to play this one out safe, not make any mistakes, as Chain of Corruption going wide on Doxa. I like the attempt from Saskio, still trying to fish. But EGP need to find a couple death sentences, like 4, and dodge out on Doxa. Oh boy.
Cannon Barrage just shreds and flashes
damage.
needed by SkyTech to stay ahead of the true shot. And this should be the game. EGP scattered behind their turret as TSM on their victory march will be able to tie up this series 1-all in fairly convincing fashion. They had very good team fights during game number 1, but fell apart during a couple of late-game poke battles. Were unable to connect with the very good play of Saskio and Aspect in the backlines. This time, TSM in full control from the word go. And EGP not really able to make a dent in it. That's going to be all 3 inhibitors broken. And EGP given space to think about what went wrong.
Gonna check the boxes. They're gonna go shop, make sure they have all their items. I like the Frozen Heart adaptation coming out from Gorka 3rd, as Lulu does not do a lot of magic damage, and that is the only magic damage on the side of EGP. We're gonna talk about some of the reasonings behind these builds from these talented players. That's about all we have to talk about in this one, TJ.
Professor Cubby.
Yeah, talking about that. Anything else we have, and what might happen in Game 3. As I really want to credit TSM, like a lot of times after you lose a game, you're like, oh god, what went wrong? What? Oh my, how did that chain land? Okay.
That's gross.
Holy
Continue,
smokes,
keep
Doxa.
talking about the build.
Okay. TSM Doxa doing his TSM Bjergsen impression there on that LeBlanc. Holy smokes. But like the micro adaptations coming out from TSM, like a lot of times when you lose games, it's like, all right, what do we need to change? Like, is it 3, 4 things? They said, you know what? No, we just need to change 2. We're gonna take away the Nidalee. We're gonna get ourselves a tankier support, and we're just gonna have a better level 1. And from there, TSM were able to take that and snowball this game into a very clean win for game 2.
Yep, here we go. Putting the finishing touches, waiting for the paint to dry. TSM have built themselves a game number 2. And that means for all of us, we get to enjoy a best-of-3 series. As Don Bray takes a bath in the fountain, it's going to be 1-all.
Doing the zooms as TSM zoomed through that game, found that early lead, and I like the fact that, you know, they looked at the game play instead of the pick ban, right? They said, you know what, we messed up a couple of these plays. If we can prevent that from EGP this next time, they're playing aggressive, they're playing aggro. Let's just try and salvage a couple plays, have a better level 1, get them behind early, and take advantage of our scaling. They did just that, put together a beautiful game 2, and now are going to push us to game 3, where a lot is on the line for both of these teams. If you win, top 4, 2 out of 3 shots to make it the Proving Grounds. If you lose, you are done today. So a lot on the line here for this game 3.
The semi-finals are decided by 1 remaining game of League of Legends. We're going to go to a quick break, then we've got the desk. Then we've got game 3. All that's still ahead after this.
Match point, gamers. We somehow see that TSM Amateur, despite a very similar draft here, Jolly, we were thinking that, oh man, they might have to go back to the drawing board, but just like in Super Smash Brothers, and if any Melee fans that saw the amazing summit of Grand Finals between Zane and Mango over the weekend, that sometimes salty runbacks that's just the best way to do it. If you already know what went wrong in the first game and you only need to change a couple variables, you can turn things around and net the game in your favor here.
I'm honestly wildly impressed. I mean, you guys couldn't hear us, but during the pick ban phase, I think when that gangplank, it was the final lock-in, when that was locked in, Rafa, you particularly were like, no, this didn't work last time. The expectation is that it's not going to work this time. But the one change, it's as though they listened to this guy over here, Rebel Fox. Yeah, you. Because he said that he wanted somebody a little bit tankier down on the bottom side. That Rakan just didn't provide the utility was necessary because the Rakan couldn't survive and get the quickness to the backline. So to have that, and then also in the bottom side, very, very early on, they also, once again, listened to this guy and had early aggression, which is something that was really lacking from just the execution of the composition in game number 1. Honestly, to have that confidence, though, to lose that game and say, no, we're not changing sides because they stayed on blue side. We're not changing any picks aside from the Rakan. That is a lot of confidence, but clearly there's a reason behind it.
And the other thing, too, Jolly, is not just the adaptation in draft, but also the adaptation in the level 1. I mean, when you have a composition that is so reliant on getting key members ahead, like the Lee Sin and the LeBlanc, to really just set the game pace up, a beautiful adaptation in this level 1, just understanding that Evil Geniuses Prodigies went for the same ward twice.
They did, and it works out really well for TSM Amateur at that point, and really started swaying in their direction. It was Evil Geniuses Prodigies the whole game that were trying to recover, trying to get whatever they could, but that level of aggression the TSM brought in to the beginning of that game maintained itself throughout its entirety.
And then we look later on down the road how this Leona support really changed the landscape for TSM Amateur and Dombre as, the change was so dramatic that it froze my camera and as it just capturing me in complete awe as Rebel. I know you were talking a lot about, there's a moment where Dombre made a play, was able to go back in, and then flashing at the very last second, baiting out Evil Geniuses members to go in. I think, if I can quote this, Dombre, why didn't you just play Leon instead of Rakan in the first game? What's going on here?
I can neither confirm nor deny whether those exact words came out of my mouth. But I think it was a combination of a number of things. I think Dombre played excruciatingly well in the Leona, and it's something that not only, look in this fight, like he's taken so much damage before he ends up going down and forces like this massive wedge into this fight, which is what cut off aspect. And again, keeping the Lulu away from your primary carry, which they set up Tomio to be in this game, was one big aspect of it. I also really appreciate the way that Dombre was able to get in and about on the map to support this mid-jungle that in the previous game didn't have that same kind of leverage. Despite the fact that Doxa in the previous game had like 4 kills, they weren't able to make the backline dive happen. Part of that's due to composition from EGP, because they had this poke and this immediate instance. That wasn't drafted this time. And so this combination of those two champions supported by Dombre got leads to begin the game, and then those leads were translated immediately into just further and further aggression into the entire map. Every single member on EGP was finding themselves at the end of aggression whatsoever.
And, when we go back to the beginning of this series and talking about some of the primary win conditions and styles for both of these teams, when we looked at the jungle matchup specifically, you mentioned how, Tomio, definitely one of the players that takes up a lot of the resources on this squad between him and Surdy. And, historically, it was Shiro, or now Danny on the LCS squad, but now that they have, changing up their squad, Tomio just taking even more resources than before. And this Graves Lulu setup, I was very excited about in the draft, because oh man, Lulu, old school counter pick to LeBlanc. If you think back to Season 4 when LeBlanc was really reigning in its prime, of course, things were different on the Lulu. You could double stack the Glitter Lance and, deal massive damage, but still, you can nullify and kind of stabilize that laning phase in between the LeBlanc, but it's not going to do that much when the action is not necessarily happening inside the laning phase, but all over the map as we saw TSM Amateur just completely destabilize the entire roster of Evil Geniuses Prodigies. So going into this game 3, Jolly, I'm looking at whether, as we don't know whether TSM are going to be taking, or Evil Geniuses Prodigies are going to remain on red side, or if they're going to now take blue side as
we do know, actually.
We do know, because the voice of God, a.k.a. Tone, just came and whispered the sweet answer into my ear saying, Evil Geniuses has selected blue side, Sir Rafa, which I'm very grateful for the formalities. You don't need, thank you. First of all, shout out to our production crew here at EGL. They all have been a fantastic bunch. But now Evil Genius is on the blue side. Jolly, I imagine that Lee Sin is not going to go to Frost Forest again.
No, certainly not again. And that was one of the staples in this composition. So you have to kind of consider, too, gives a little bit more of an opportunity for, for EGP to really destabilize the whole win condition, the whole idea behind the composition that TSM Amateur has now run through twice. And if they were that confident in it, then you could assume that they would have confidence in those same picks going forward. So remove as many as possible, lock in the Lee Sin for your team, and then ban out, honestly, as much as you hated the Gangplank lock-in, and we hated the Gangplank lock-in, that GP, the Global Ultimate, really, really made a difference in that game for the rest of the team to initiate and roam around as much as they were. So just trying to limit the mobility of the champions that are being run there from EGP is probably going to be TSM's best bet.
The other thing to consider, too, is that there's a lot of comfort picks that have been coming through and pretty much uncontested for TSM Amateur. I think one of the bigger picks that we also have to look out, apart from the Lee Sin for Frost Force, is actually the Ezreal for Gorka, because when you think about how TSM Amateur do want to play, being able to allow Dombre to roam on someone like a powerful Vanguard like Leona here, Rebel, you mentioned how that the fact that Gorka is playing, getting the ability to play super safely, thanks to having Ezreal, that might be something that is also left to EGP's devices if they either want to take it away for themselves or just eliminate it as a ban option.
Okay, so I think EGP's draft plan has changed immensely here for a second. They are in really good position to set themselves up on blue side here. The previous 2 games, there were 2 bans that were consistent from the side of TSM, which were the Diana and then also the Viego. And we talked about how Viego, I think Jolly talked about how Viego was super good across multiple lanes. Now that they're on blue side, Xin Zhao also has to be added to that list, because if Tomio gets that champion, not only is he beating you in the early game, he's beating you mid game, he's beating you late game, he's beating you next game, he's beating you all day, all week, all night. So your choice now comes to, if you ban that champion and the previous 2, Nidalee's available, Renekton's available first pick on blue side, and you know that they're capable of taking that in, and they get that powerful duo a second time in the top lane. So I don't think you can do that. I think you have to give something up. So they're getting Viego, they're getting Diana, or they're getting Xin Zhao. And that immediately gives a bunch of power over. I could talk about which one I think I would prefer. But I really like that EGP just immediately, because of those 2 picks having to be permabanned, are just going to get their hands on one of those 3 champions because of the threat that the Nidalee is going to have to bring.
It's one of those things where, just thinking about the thought of Tomio getting his hands on Viego or Diana, and or Xin Zhao, you're immediately like, okay, no, those 3 have to be banned. But then you think back to game 1 and Tomio bringing out the Nidalee again. It's like, once again, we're at this point in the conversation where it's like there's just not enough bans in the world, and considering how TSM Amateur have been throwing all their bans towards Tomio, I think just speaks in volumes, Jolly, how massive of a factor Tomio is when he is on a good footing for this Evil Geniuses roster.
Yes, not Meteos, unfortunately, people, is Tomio for this player. And I mean, every single time we say Xin Zhao, Rebel smiles, because, and I'm assuming it is because of all the players that you want to see run Xin Zhao. It's going to be Tomio. Absolutely obliterates on this one and perfectly fits the composition style that they've been running with this heavy-hitting backline. It's going to allow Gorka to be able to smack the backline in response, or Saskio there. So, honestly, I think the Xin Zhao should be pretty high priority. I don't know if they're actually going to go with that one. Viego would probably be my ideal pick here, though, because I was mentioning as well during the games, it wasn't just Tomio. I think it was Tomio and also Surdy, I believe. In their last 10 games that they've played, I mean, 6 or 7 of them are Viego, so both of them really loving this champion. As Rebel mentioned, one of those perma bans. So it's once again going to be a bunch of bans forced onto Tomio, who's still going to get something that he wants.
That's the power of having blue side in this series here against TSM Amatuer for Evil Geniuses Prodigies. One of those OP jungle picks for Tomio specifically is about to be left open unless for some reason they throw a curveball at us and ban one of those junglers out. But, you know, I'm very much inclined to be in the same ballpark as you, Jolly, and Rebel Fox. So, Game 3 on the horizon. TJ and Cubby, the lads in plaid, they are going to bring us one last game between these two teams before we get a semifinal list announced. And then we'll have to see how the rest of the bracket plays out here in the EGL Summer Showdown.
Rafa, I'm like trying to be cooler like you, and the only answer I have is to just let it breathe a little bit. Welcome back to the caster desk. It's time for game number 3. TSM and EG have taken us all the way. Play the silver scrapes in your head whilst you're listening to us set this up. As we head towards the draft, Cubby, what needs to change?
Well, EGP thinks that their side needs to change, which is a big shift coming in from them because the changes we saw going from Game 1 to Game 2 was TSM said, we don't need a lot of changes, we just need to have a better setup level 1. We're going to get rid of the Nidalee, take away the magic damage coming out from the jungle. The Lulu doesn't do a lot of magic damage, so they got ahead early. They stacked armor against a comp with no magic damage, and it was a rather easy controlled game from TSM as they did a great job splitting up that Lulu Graves. Now EGP, they said, you know what, we've shown enough of our cards, we're going to shift over to blue side, and that means that there's a few bans that TSM now have to take off the table on blue that Rebel was highlighting. It opens up a few bans for EGP to get rid of as they want to take away Frost Forest Lee Sin that's been so good in this series.
It's time to go. Let's talk about these bans because I think the Frost Forest Lee Sin makes a massive difference in what we can expect from the early game. What's the fallback for Frost Forest?
The Frost Forest has a lot of options. There could be a Lulu Kindred coming out. There could be a whole host of options as I'm seeing TJ getting ready for this Game 3. It's getting a little bit sweaty in here as this
match me, Rafa. All the way down, Rafa. Will we come back to the desk? All the way down. Sorry.
No, it's all good. We've got a lot on the line here, Game 3. As once again, the winner, you make semifinals. That gives you a 2 out of 3 chance to qualify for Proving Grounds as Wildcard Red have already booked their ticket in the first tournament as they have 2 tournament wins. And EGP, TSM, they want that opportunity. They want to try and face the winner of Zoo's AoE, which will be played tomorrow. We'll have updates for you on the EGL Twitter. Go follow them if you can. And it looks like the game plan, a magic damage jungler was lacking last game for EGP. The Lulu Graves didn't work out. They're shifting up their bans. They shifted up their sides, and they're bringing out Diana and the Moonfalls from the jungle, TJ.
And I'm excited to see the Moonfall come out here because it provides a little more of that focused teamfight damage that it felt like EG didn't have last game. It gives them the synergy built into one character that they were trying to build between the Graves and the Lulu. That's all onto one character now, just in terms of ease of execution. Oh, TSM, we get the Ziggs, presumably AD carry, that has been Flavor of the Month recently. And that puts their AP out of the mid lane, so instead we can see Doxa pick up a Lucian. And I'm very excited by this. I think Doxa's Lucian is incredible to watch. Saskio, forced away from the Varus, we are going to go ahead and see a Kai'Sa. This has been the other character that has been played recently. We've seen a fair amount of it in Saskio's solo queue as he's been kind of grinding on his new computer.
Yeah, when it was Spring Proving Grounds with Winthrop, this was Saskio's most played champion, hands down. I think he had over 25 plays in Kai'Sa with a very positive win rate when he was paired up with Frost Forest and Doxa on that squad. Now finds himself emergency subbing in against them in Game 3. He's performed admirably throughout the 2 games this series, and returning to comfort for him, Kai'Sa Nautilus is going to be the answer. And I'm curious about this Galio because it seems like that's Donbray's choice of support. There's a small chance that TSM could get real wild and throw a Lucian top, a Galio mid, something like that. But I fully expect it to be Doxa's Lucian and a Ziggs Galio bot lane. So this is their answer into the Kai'Sa Nautilus, and Kai'Sa is a pretty low-range champion, so I want to see TSM see if they can grab some things to combo with that, as curiously enough, to actually ban out the Camille from themselves, respecting Surdy's Camille, and also respecting the Yasuo, which is a great pick into Lucian that we've seen crop up quite a bit in the LPL, as they need to look for their jungler and their top laner, whereas EGP is still looking for solo laners.
Your bans, the GP, the Volibear being taken away from TSM's Eclipse are actually very exciting. It'll force the Renekton to come out here. What does Surdy pull with Camille also banned out? Camille, the obvious answer. You can also usually play Volibear and GP into Renekton.
This could be a Gnar.
Deeper.
It could be a Gnar for Surdy. Jace is an option. Jace actually wins both solo lane matchups against Lucian as time goes on. So EGP are going to feel pretty good about that, as Surdy trying to take a dominant matchup in the top lane.
And this makes up for the fact that they don't have a Varus, because you now do have the poke. You do have the tools to kind of match that Ziggs and the poke state that oftentimes these late game fights work down towards. Ooh, this is set mid.
Yeah, I like this for EGP because set, it enables them to throw Renekton, throw Galio into the team of TSM, set team fights very well, and it also gives Diana a lane to play through. So I think Aspect, we talk about the fact that the big difference in this team, or between these two teams, is the fact that Aspect very much plays to enable Tomio. Frostforce always plays to enable Doxa. We're going to see another game of that just here, as it might be a Nocturne last pick. With the changes, we haven't been seeing as much Lane Nocturne, but he's still the same champion in the jungle, and that's going to be last pick for Frostforce here, as he's going to be returning to Nocturne and turning off the lights against CGP.
Okay, I like where we've ended up. You have a very solid teamfight composition built by EGP, and you have a very solid carry for Tomio to try and boost Surdy ahead on. The two players we care most about in the EGP teamfight, Surdy and Tomio, have characters that can solo win teamfights, so regardless of which one of them gets rolling, they're set up for success. Aspect has the kind of safe, secure mid laner he likes, and Saskio has one of his comforts as well. This is very well set up.
I like what you, very well set up, you know? I like what you did there, TJ. It's nice as we're diving into Game 3.
It's supposed to notice.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of explosive early games. The first 3 waves for both games have been rather lethal, as I think EGP Game 1, they got like, it was 2-2 after the first 3 waves. TSM, of course, found that level 1 kill, but this jungle matchup, very different in the fact that the race to 6 is so important for Diana versus Nocturne. And what TSM want to do, it's dogpile, right? They want to have the Nocturne, that's how they get the Galio into the fight. They're going to combine that with the Super Mega Inferno Bomb from Ziggs, and they want to blow you up from range, whereas EGP, it's going to be about set retaliating, RKOing someone out of that and finding a re-engage on the back half with Tomio. So I know that Surdy's a big carry we've been highlighting in a very important piece for EGP, but I actually want to keep our eyes on Aspect to see how he plays these fights, because against a brawler-heavy team, Set can be enabled, especially early, to wreck house in team fights and do a lot of damage and have a huge impact.
I mean, we're both support mains, you know how it is. Obviously, the focus goes to the carries, but very often the game is decided by those who are setting the carries up for success. Aspect was a huge part of that during game number 1. I would argue also a huge part of it during game number 2, as he was full focused by TSM, kept from achieving the ideal combination as providing the support for Tomio on the Graves. So here we go into game 3. How much success does Aspect find in lane? Maybe safety is a better word for it. I also want to talk about the TSM side of things, where as we go late, they're going to have that Nocturne to turn out the lights and find opportunities. How useful is that past the laning phase?
It's going to give TSM control over team fights, especially if EGP have to TP to retaliate, because Paranoia denies TPs from coming in. So that's always something that Nocturne can utilize. And just going back to our notes before the series too, TJ, the one that I've still been sitting on is the fact that the additional Frostforce. Keep in mind, this is the member that TSM introduced later in Proving Grounds. He came in the second tournament to replace Infectrix as the old duo with Doxa. And catching up with Gorka, he said Chan or Frostforce, he's been so important in studying out the early games, because the early games used to be volatile. but because of his synergy with Doxa, his knowledge in the jungle role, just winning a collegiate championship with Winthrop, he's really helped bring more of a game plan and an identity to TSM in the early stages of the game, which brings a lot of weight off of Gorika's shoulders to do that, as he's one of the more experienced members, and has really helped TSM make their first quarterfinal, get out of groups for the first time in the third Tier 2, and now they have a chance to get in the semifinals here if they can take this game versus EGP.
Already their best performance here on the Proving Grounds. Now TSM have a chance to do even better than that. EGP, a roster still living under the shadow of the former roster, one that sent players directly to the LCS. This is the roster from which Danny emerged. The force he has been for EG's main team, LCS roster. And so, it's a big game for both teams, I think. Something to prove on both sides, as EG are also demonstrating, I think, a deeper roster of play than we've seen previously. I will say, one mark against EG, I do think it should be illegal for Tomio to change his name to Medios, because the amount of times that has tripped me up is very high. So just go through it.
He talked about it when we had him on the Proving Grounds pod, the podcast to do with another caster, Smacks. And he said that, yeah, I just wanted people to think I was Medios, because he changed it back when he was Season 4. And he's like, but it was C2, because I was like 1/5 as good as him. Because Medios had C10 Medios, and so would you back then. So that's the story behind that one, and we will have to keep our eyes on Tomio on the Diana, as he does have the option to 3-camp gank Lucian. Set has very good gank setup, and I'm curious to see if Tomio wraps around through mid, and I love that Doxa actually just dropped a ward onto Raptors to check that play and prevent that play from coming through. So good knowledge coming out from Doxa and how this matchup's played.
Just to run through it once for chat, in case I do mess it up during team fights. The player currently going by the tag C2 Medios is Tomio. The player going by the tag Amnesia is Surti. So, you've probably seen those names around before. And I apologize if in the midst of a team fight, I call the wrong name.
It's the issues with being on the live server. You got to deal with a couple extra hoops to jump through for us casters, as we have both junglers pathing towards this crab on the top side. And it's priority for one solo lane each, and we actually have Nautilus roaming up. I think this might be odds for EGP, but Dox is going to get to the play first.
Oh, what a flash from Aspects! He finds Doxa, and he shuts him down! First blood over to Aspect.
That's what I was mentioning when I talked about the gank assist in this matchup. The Set versus Lucian paired up with Diana. Lethal for Lucian if he's caught out. Doxa not even burning flash, understanding that he was in big trouble. He's going to get a replay once again. The flash clap from Aspect is on point. And I love that Tomio also snuck in a ward just barely off camera to scout that Frost Force wasn't going to be there in time, enable them to go for this play. And that kill, I said that it was one lane of priority for each team. Well, just taking out the mid laner, that guarantees the crab, as Tomio going to take that one and take jungle priority, as Frost Force does skip over his Krugs. So Tomio up a little bit, now potentially looking for a dive on the top side, trying to match Frost Force, who will be going for that camp.
Would be warded if he stepped through the tri-bush.
Oh, he's not
Eclipse
spotted.
doing a good job setting up for that. Tomio walking near the Krugs, taking the Krugs currently on that top side of the map. I think he's on ward now.
He just got spotted, I believe, on that ward that Eclipse posted over the wall. But because Eclipse is so low on HP, I don't think he can answer, and Tomio just gets away with a camp advantage. Doxa was even walking up, but Tomio gets away in time. Wins across the board here for EGP, and a much better early game start for them.
Oh, we are fine in the bottom lane. There is no danger. Skytech,
maybe not that case in the top lane.
A millisecond away from finding a hook, as you correctly identify up top. Surti is doing some significant damage to Eclipse, whilst Frost Force kind of roams round the side. Wasn't able to find a kill, so now he goes into the jungle, only to find that it is Baron.
Oh, and Tomio's reading Frost Force so well here. He's going to find him on this camp as Frost Force is skipping over all of his camps to try and deny this one. And Aspect's rotating. Oh, TP.
Called out. TP.
Double
TPs
TP
for both teams. Here comes Doxa Dunbray in from the other side of the river. Eclipse on the TP finishes first. It's man advantage over to TSM. First blood still picked up by Surti. Double kill to Surti. They've won it. 3v5 off the back of an outstanding setup from Aspect.
The set is too strong at this point of the game.
Okay.
Oh, good flash from Doxa. That saves what could have been critical damage dealt to TSM, but Skytech, he's still sticking around. Aspect can still go for this play. As they're fishing, Doxa has to respect this. He's waiting for Doxa to step up. They have 3 here. Can they find him?
Push in from Skytech. Hook, he dodges it. All Meteos finds damage. Pulled back in. Goodbye, Doxa. He didn't have the mana. He was just dead.
A brilliant early game from EGP. All credit should go to Tomio, who, to be fair to Frost Force, after he gets his Krugs denied, the only play he has on that side of the map, if he wants to go for the Wolves, he thought that Tomio would be going bot. He thought that he'd be going for the full clear from Krugs back top to try and hit the 2-minute timer to take down the Renekton in the top side. And the 3v4, it's all made by Aspect. You cannot engage on set at this point of the game, TJ. They were trying to one-shot him, but the takedown, the fact that he was able to get the Haymaker off, it's too much damage to deal with. EGP turn the play. They don't lose anyone. They even take down Dox on the back half. And TSM are reeling at this point of the game. They have to try and stall time, get items on Ziggs and Lucian to give themselves a chance to get back in this one.
And Doxa just lingering there. Didn't have the dash. Didn't have a flash. He'd burned it moments before to dodge out Skytech's hook. So he just dies, and EGP, game number 3, it all on the line. They step up.
A team that took 5th, 6th finish in Proving Grounds against all the Academy teams. It is, oddly enough, despite their lower placements so far, they're the team that's given Wildcard Red the best run for their money. They're one of 2 teams to take them to 5, the other one being C9 Amateur as well, who got knocked out earlier today on stream. But EGP being on this side of the bracket, they want another shot. They lost to Wildcard Red in the quarterfinals of Challengers Uprising. And they want to get back, make that a finals matchup, make that an exciting best of 5. Try and take them down as TSM. Their only answer is to try and help out this Renekton. Jace is shoving out.
Not quite level 6. Amnesia steps up, absolutely demolishes Eclipse's HP, but here's Frost Forest, and the fear goes off just in time. Surdy's dead. Meteos, though, flash! Oh, he's got Frost Forest, 1 for 1. And Dox on the run is here with the culling, shredding Aspect's HP. It's not enough. 2 for 1. EGP trade positive again.
The 3.5k gold lead, it's not going anywhere for EGP as the teleport from Aspect guarantees the fact the fight's going to go their way. And the fact that Surdy was able to do so much chip damage against the Renekton, just how that matchup plays out was really what enabled Tomio to get in there and use the Moonfall Flash to make that play happen. As Tomio and Aspect have been running the Rift in this game, TJ. Full kill participation for Tomio, 1-0-6 and a 4-0-1 set as well. As we're going to get a second look at this. Look at the chunk damage going over on Eclipse, right? When this all-in comes in from Jace, Eclipse can't fully commit because he might go down. And that golf swing back as well just keeps Eclipse on the border for Tomio. He gets up there in a beautiful Moonfall Flash to connect that one. And the culling just tickles Aspect on the set at this point. As Eclipse falls, the lead stays for EGP. And they want to book that ticket into the semifinals. They want to give themselves a 2-on-3 shot to get back into Proving Grounds. If there are 2 spots for 3 teams remaining if they make it to semis. TSM,
what a game for Tomio. Bit of a quiet series so far for Tomio. And to come into game 3 and just say, no, this is why I'm known as the lead of this team. This is why when people talk about EGP, they talk about Tomio. And give us a full-fledged demonstration here in the quarterfinals. Well, that's just perfect.
Oh,
TSM.
boy.
Oh, going for more here in the mid lane. That's Doxer just dead! Aspect again! Because never forget, there are 2 parts to the Tomio legend. One of them Aspect standing slightly further behind, but presumably because he's just landed some great CC. TSM, during all of that, did manage to get a Drake. That's the first objective actually picked up by anyone this game. But it will be swiftly answered as EG. It's their turn to trade Drakes for Rift Herald.
And it's curious because TSM and Draft, they realized that with this early Lucian setup, they can set up kill lanes with the Diana on EGP's side. They banned out the Yasuo, the new kill lane that we've seen emerging in the LPL or the combo. But they didn't respect the set, and Aspect, oh, beautiful play on his part. once Doxa gets clapped back, he's dead. And oh boy, action top.
Moonfall in, dropped by Tomio, and that stalls up the play. Frost Forest, no HP,
Body
burning
blocking.
from the Ignite. Self-heals on the wave. He lives on maybe 2 HP, and will be able to survive. Walk away to tell the tale. Still, the play TSM initiated up top, cancelled by a good roam. Now down bottom, Saskio.
Oh.
Zoned off of the jungle invade by Donbray. Blown Mega Inferno Bomb, though. Didn't find any value, and that's important.
A little bit of a preemptive bomb there coming out from Gorica. But TSM still trying to find any play. The fact that Frost Force survived that engage top. Rather critical, as EGP were trying to set up a crash with Shelly, because that was secured during one of the replays for Tomio. And he's here to respond to the play from Frost Force. That's a Nocturne ult for naught. And oh boy, 5 HP? Not even close.
Just incredibly low. Frost Forest, no slouch of a jungler himself, as he's demonstrated this series. Does stay ahead of the damage, just barely. Doxa ought to know Skytech's in this bush. That's rather the point of Skytech's current position. Forcing a rotate out from the bottom lane. Saskio more than capable of keeping track of his own wave down bottom.
That is a good part about Ziggs, the fact that you can roam on a Ziggs with your team. You can also roam into a Ziggs, as Skytech has taken advantage of that, now looking for Frost Forest. They spot out.
Poke. Blocked by the spell shield. The worst feeling as a Nautilus player. We did just get confirmation. I wanna run with this very quickly. We did just get confirmation of how much HP Frost Forest had on the top lane. It was 11 HP.
Ooh.
So, incredibly
Double digits.
Yeah.
It wasn't single digits, you know? It was calculated.
You're
for
right.
Frost
Sorry,
Forest.
Covey. It was easy. I don't know why we were hyping it up.
These
Frankly,
guys
I'm
are trying to go pro,
embarrassed.
you know?
A player as good as you, a player as experienced as you would have known, there was no biggie.
Oh, man. As Skytech continues to hover aspect. And I do like some of the restraint coming out from Skytech. The fact that he didn't follow up that Nocturne with a depth charge, didn't go too deep, something that the young support hailing out of University of Western Ontario, UWO, a team that Goric is also from. Learning competitive and still getting better as Doxa under siege, but surviving that one as Tomio is still deciding where to drop Shelly. Has about 30 seconds left to decide, as a fourth of the time is left.
Aspect has had just...
Looks like he's going top. Yeah.
Aspect has had just 2 incredible games this series. Currently 5-0-1 on the set. Here we go through the top lane. Meteor's finally... Tomio finally dropping that Rift Herald. Little crash here. Frost Forest and Dawnbray are nearby. TP in as well. Heroic entrance is the full combo, but Aspect denies it. Pulling Frost Forest out of the combo, and now he steps forward to the front line, pulling Dawnbray away from Meteos. Doxa dives in, denied by the Haymaker. Skytech will fall. Aspect sacrifices his life for the team, but they cancel out what was a deadly combo up top, and Saskio free farms down bottom.
It was a good read from TSM. That was a telegraphed play coming out of EGP. We knew they wanted to drop Shelly, and the most likely candidate would be Jace in this match of accelerating him to get to that 2-item spike. And so TSM, Dawnbray, credit to him, right? Him and Frost Force are up here to respond. The big difference, the fact that Gorica, with the Super Mega Inferno Bomb, was able to contribute. And that did significant enough damage to help TSM turn that play around and take 2 for themselves.
Just incredible stuff. Very good team fight out of TSM. They save Dox's cooldowns for the very end. Frost Force and Eclipse take the vast majority of the damage. Dawnbray is still live to kind of soak frontline in the second half of the fight. Well cleaned up, and it puts TSM back in this game. They're still, of course, behind, but now are within striking distance.
The shutdown did get Doxa a Gale Force, and because they denied that play, they were able to get back out onto the map first, as of course EGP had to wait in gray screen jail a little bit. That gives them the second dragon of the game, as it's going to be a Cloud Soul. Not what TSM was hoping to roll. I think an Infernal Soul would have been much more beneficiary for them. But against a melee-heavy team, picking up Cloud Soul, not bad, and oh boy, Doc's in trouble.
No, he's not. He's fine. He's just gonna have to wait 28 seconds to play the game again. Very well played by Saskia, again spotting the opportunity, but it's the jungle presence, it's the map presence from EGP that's been consistently creating these opportunities, and that's why we've been praising Tomio so much.
That play was made by Skytech and Saskio. The two collegiate duo, and Saskio, of course, getting revenge on his old teammate Doxa from Winthrop. As Doxa, yeah, he was just going for the red buff. Skytech sees it. I think he burns Flash, get over the buff. Nope. Yep, there we go.
Oh.
Dredge line.
And
even steals it with the Riptide. Plus 100.
Wow. Skytech, I apologize. That was all you, Chief. Incredible stuff from the support player there.
So, fun fact about Skytech, actually, is I know that Riot recently did a Masterminds bit where Demonte was talking a lot about AP Recon. Skytech's the one that popularized that in NA solo queue. He hit GM playing AP Recon, and it's now a support main. His Recon play is pretty disgusting. UWO is actually running AP Recon with Senna in C-Law, as he is so mechanically gifted, just as a player, but especially on that champion in general, as he has a lot of extra games on it in an awkward role. And it's been fun seeing Skytech in his first split as a competitive support playing semi-pro really start to take the steps up to evolve and get EGP back to that level where they want to compete with those academy teams in Proving Grounds. His development's been a big part of their increased success, much how TSM's increased success has come off the back of Donbray really maturing as a young 17-year-old support prospect as well.
Really, really cool to see. Aspect, this is illegal. He's going to get this. Eclipses, burns the flash. Aspect gets angry, runs him down. Eclipse, with the ulti, is still killed, and by Aspect nonetheless.
Eclipse does go down, but burns a lot of time for Doxa to get some alone time in the top lane, picking up a few free waves for himself, and getting accelerated on the solution that is a win con for TSM to try and come back in this one. Is get Lucian Ziggs far enough ahead where they can really take advantage of a low-range composition coming out from EGP. As Doxa going for the Gale Force, trying to give himself a little bit of increased security in these team fights. And while EGP find a pick in the side lane, this game has slowed down a little bit and gotten to a pace where TSM can at least mitigate the damage being dealt by EGP.
I'm going to say a TJism. Are TSM within striking distance, Cubby?
I like that. Especially when you have like a Nocturne Galio with a Super Mega Inferno Bomb. It feels like, you know...
Are they within striking distance of EGP right now?
They have a lot of range to get in striking distance of them. In terms of the game overall, you know, we'll see. Yeah. But it's, a couple levels there, TJ. Yeah. As I think this next Dragon's going to be critical for EGP. The two Dragons for TSM, it's kind of been their consolation prize for what's been going on in the map. They're down. But stacking up Dragons at least gives them a backdoor win con. And with about a minute 15 before this last one, I think EGP have to take this next Dragon seriously and commit resources to try and deny this from TSM. As they're trying to get mid lane priority. Should it be sneaking into this bot side river to get vision control as Tomio does just that. But a nice ward snuck by from TSM. But Donbray might not be able to sneak by from Tomio.
Tomio steps back into the taunt. Not the slightest bit concerned about it. Does scare away the TSM members with his raw aggression. That'll be enough.
You can see Aspect and how important this Dragon is to EGP. They don't care about that top lane, right? They're going to let Renekton crash that. He has TP to respond, but it's more important for EGP to dedicate extra resources to maintain this vision control. So they're actually going to sack a lot of gold, and TSM, I think, looks like they're going to take that handshake, TJ. They're like, that's fine. We're going to take your top camps. We're going to pressure this turret. We're going to catch up on gold as we are the scaling team. And we're okay with this trade. So they don't care as much about Cloud Soul. They want this. And EG, if they see this, they don't want to let them get away with this for free. So they're going to try and contest now.
Yeah, and this results in kind of a split focus. Because all that work done by EGP to gain control of the river is kind of thrown away by their attempt to respond to TSM's pressure on the top side. We now have 3 seconds before this Drake comes out. Who has control of the river? It's split, but TSM have much more than they did a moment ago. So they walk away the beneficiary of their exchange up top. It does still seem that they have no intention of properly contesting this Dragon now. EG will be able to take it. Saskia making quick work of it alongside Tomio. And they will be able to lock in their first Drake of the game for the EG project. Oh dear, Mega Inferno Bomb. Saskio barely stays ahead of that one.
Good Gale Force from Saskio, as he guarantees that he gets out of that. And yeah, I think TSM, I think the things they're waiting on, TJ, are they want Serelda's Grudge for Lucian, and they want Seraph's Embrace for Ziggs. Those are two pretty big spikes, especially the Serelda's Grudge, where all of a sudden the culling and all your abilities on Lucian, you slow melees. You are able to control so much more space for the Ziggs and Galio of the team fight. So the fact that TSM have slowed things down at least give them an angle to potentially get back in this one, as that is a preemptive. Kelly's going for a big hike here, TJ. Going downtown.
I love that for her.
Yeah,
getting the exercise in.
Summoner's Rift is nice, you know?
How long do you think it would take you to walk down midline?
Oh, God. I think we have to check Joshi's Twitter for that, because he recently did a poll.
I don't want to know the numbers. I want to know how fast you could run from one side of the map to the other down mid. Quick, there's about to be a team fight.
6 miles, that takes about an hour. Oh, that's what
you think it would take you an hour to run all the way down midline?
I'm saying it's 6 miles, you know?
You're an athlete.
I feel like it's pretty thick.
Chat.
That said,
returning
to the
what
game.
Your mid-lane time is. EGP
Turning
pressing
the game.
down,
Oh boy.
and here's the play. TSM go off the back of Frostforce, spotting and isolating
lives.
Saskio. He dodges the Mega Inferno Bomb.
That was
Great
so
movement
good.
from Saskio, and here comes Skytech round the side, joined by Tomio. Depth charge, chews through the back line, separating Eclipse from his team, and that's going to be a full follow-through with Aspect chunking away. Skytech goes deeper. There's nothing left for TSM. They swung with the biggest bat they had, and EGP were not dented.
So Saskio dodges out on everything, but EGP, they don't get any kills. And on the side lane, Doxa soloed out Surdy, who also burned his flash. Doxa did not, so that Serelda's Grudge already coming up big. And now can Aspect re-engage. He has ult.
He has ult, but he's full CC!
Oh no!
That was disgusting! He doesn't get to use any of his abilities. He's just melted. And what was a damn good mid lane hold from EGP has now spiraled a bit as TSM take advantage of the side lane shove. And here on the mid lane, that's going to be a turret knockdown as well.
And TSM, they hit their spike, they go for the fight, and they're bringing this game back, TJ. The shutdowns for them are so important. I mentioned they wanted Serelda's Grudge, they wanted Seraph's Embrace. They get those two items, they instantly go for a brawl. And of course, Surdy, he's going to take any fight he can. But this long lane versus Doxa, he can't see anything, so he just gets gunned down by the Lucian. And Doxa playing with his ranges so cleanly. Understanding he has the Gale Force, he's going to get the slow here. Yep, he's just dead. Good play from Doxa in the 1v1, showing off his Lucian mechanics. And meanwhile, the fact that EGP didn't find any kills after Saskio dodged out on every ultimate, Aspect found the cancel on the Galio. I think it shows the importance of Surdy in these team fights. Jace needs to be there pumping out the damage while he gets space bought by the rest of his team. And the exhaust that could have went down onto Tomio wasn't even needed for that fight, TJ, as all of a sudden, a game that's been in full control for EGP for the first 22 minutes is getting close and a little bit hairy as TSM has now made this a 2k gold deficit for themselves, and they have the scaling.
Briefly, though it doesn't overlap with the current game state, Saskio has played incredibly as a substitute. This has been if you view sub-games here as kind of a job application, this is an incredible job application. Any team looking for an AD carry has to be eyeing Saskio right now. As the mid-pressure comes through, and oh, what a dive deep in! I'm not sure about this, frankly, but Tomio makes it work. Gorka goes down. That's one kill over, nothing in response. Trying to work away at it, Doxa chews away at Skytech's HP. Wow! The very edge of his range, he finds the kill.
Dox can do
and
this.
Now he's back in. Tomio in trouble. Eclipse goes for the dive.
Wait a minion!
Oh, flash over the top from Aspect, and he throws it back in. Haymaker, Aspect, that was incredible. And there's the follow-up. Tomio round this side. 3 kills to EGP. Frost Forest nailed by the Void Seeker. Blind from Saskio. It's 4 kills in a row. 5 kills for a complete ace. EGP are going to take the Baron.
Exactly what EGP needed to break the game back open in their favor, TJ, and it's off the back of Aspect, who never used his ultimate in the initial fight, and the re-engage from TSM just when Doxa feels like he's strong enough to make the space, just when Doxa feels like they're ahead enough to actually go in for the fight. Eclipse goes in, doesn't find a member of EGP, and Aspect turns all their hopes and dreams on them instantly. After he started off the party with his flank, look at how deep he goes with the rest of his squad as they just target down Gorka, who doesn't have flash from the last skirmish. He doesn't need to use his ultimate as he sneaks on out of here. And then when the turn comes in, because Doxa's piloting the solution beautifully. I mean, he's just dancing in and out, using all of his cooldowns so well. Once Eclipse gets here, they feel like they might be able to turn it, they might be able to push, they might be able to go in. But the stun doesn't connect. Aspect, the flash clap, and the RKO. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's just what EGP need to take this game.
That is one of the sickest team fights all round I have ever seen. Very cool stuff from this game. Semi-Pro delivering. As Baron gets taken by EGP, Drake gets taken by EGP, but TSM aren't done yet. They'll full commit. Frost Force diving deep to try and shut down Saskio, backed up by the Mega Inferno Bomb and the Heroic Entrance. They don't find the kill, but they do force a back.
And they get a flash from Surdy, which they can punish later with Doxa. As TSM, I like that. They're trying to set up and do that before the siege comes in, as they know that a J siege would be difficult for them to deal with. But once again, the low-range composition of EGP, they kind of need to use these objectives to get fights out, as they're not going to have an easy time sieging with a Kai'Sa going into a Ziggs. Jace will help bridge that, but it's a low-range composition that wants to brawl. TSM still have that mid-outer up. They can still buy time. It should fall with this first Baron. EGP are going to get that gold injection and that gold lead back from this first Baron. But it's not all gloom and doom for TSM. Time is still their friend.
Oh, what is that? Tomio in. Gorka will survive thanks to the shielding. Flashing away to stay safe. Bailed
and that's
out.
The big one.
Very
that's
narrowly
the big
by
one.
a staff.
They got Ziggs' flash, so they can punish that. Again, the last fight went the way of EGP because they found Ziggs without his flash. Now Doxa might be found. Uh-oh. Good night.
He's deleted. This time, Sarty wins the trade. He had Tomio around the side if necessary. Yeah. Tomio was just there as his hype man, though. He got the kill. Here's the play down the top lane as EGP are trying to bring this Baron to Baron. The fact that they have shut down Frost Forest in onto the side, as you say, but Frost Forest very far ahead here. And Saskio just walks away. The rest of EGP are there before TSM are. And as I was about to say, the fact that they have killed Doxa means that there's a player disadvantage just in terms of covering all this distance. So, indeed, pressure comes through down bottom. And what was that? A slam dunk from Surdy eradicates half of Eclipse's HP. And the player advantage keeps rolling as the Baron buff fades. Another turret falls in the top lane, down to the inhibitor turrets in all three lanes. The bottom inhibitor is incredibly low. That bottom inhibitor turret down to about half its HP, if not lower currently.
And as we have the Baron buff expire, EGP got everything they wanted. It's a 10k gold lead for them now, as it's going to be so difficult for TSM to overcome this. EGP doing critical damage. They didn't break an inhibitor turret, they didn't break an inhibitor, but they broke everything else on the map, TJ. As they can return and set up. Both objectives are spawning here in 2 minutes. They can see the dragon. The big objective is going to be that Baron. And if they get into the top side jungle of TSM first, I still think it's really difficult for TSM to deal with this, but uh-oh. Surdy's in trouble. No flash.
They know. Heroic entrance over the top. Surdy is dead. Very well played. He very nearly found Frost for us. Honorable mention. There was just a ward over the top there, and just outside of that Krug pit. That paid off there for TSM. They find the kill. And that is very important because the death timers at this point are quite long. So for the next 35, 40 seconds, it's going to be rather difficult for EG to start setting up map control. They're going to have to play very carefully as they are at a player disadvantage. And TSM can get some vision around these objectives. I do want to talk the flip side of what you're talking about because yes, there will be another Baron shortly. Yes, that will matter, but TSM are kind of coming online here. They're 2 Drakes away from Seoul. And if, perchance, they survive this next Baron, trading it for a dragon, then they're one away from the soul and very likely scaled back into this game.
Infinity Edge for Doxa is the next big item on them. I think they need to try and get to that point. But these team fights are going to be so difficult as this set build. Fun fact, has been being called the mathematically correct set build. The only thing that's missing is ability haste boots. But it's pretty much made to just get you a big haymaker and try and get 2 haymakers off in a fight. As the Gore Drink of the Sterix keep you alive, health stacking benefits the rest of your abilities. Now EGP, they're done with Ziggs. He doesn't have flash. They're hunting him. Here we go.
Goroka forced into stasis, but he does have it. Will it survive? No, he's just gone. And that's going to be the mid inhibitor broken. Can EGP add now? They cannot let this game keep going. If they break the inhibitor, it'll be all but impossible for TSM to contest the objective, but they're not going to be content with that. EGP keep pushing. Hook will be found. Paranoia underneath the turret. The Moonfall still lands. EGP have the fight. An Aspect separates Eclipse. That's going to be the Nexus turret. Shredded as well. As EGP are doing it, they're going to have this game. They're going to have this series with a massive advantage. They've now
Eclipse
opened
is pulling
up
the wave.
mid lane. They've opened
they kept the
up
cannon
the
alive.
Nexus.
They got to keep it alive. If they can keep that cannon alive, I think that's enough time they need to try and end the game. As
There's
Surdy,
nobody up.
they're trying to keep the cannon, 200 HP. That's all they need. They're going to tank it. That's game. EGP have done it. What a dredge line coming in from Skytech, the youngest member of EGP, finds the hook they need to wrap up this game and send EGP into the semifinals.
What a game, what a series. In the quarterfinals of the Summer Showdown, it comes down to the very end of game number 3, and I could not be more pleased.
And EGP, they were reeling after that game 2 early game. TSM took the scaling comp, beat them early. EGP said, you know what? The micro adaptation you guys made when we were on the same side, we're going to swap sides, we're going to take that Diana, we're going to set up this combo between Tomio and Aspect, which we talked about how they can enable each other on the map, and they did just that, and what a performance from Aspect in that game 3.
And I do feel like I end up saying this every single time I cast a semi-pro event here in North America, but every single time there is so much talent here. The individual play coming out from that game, regardless of, yes, especially during game 1, there were some mistakes made around vision, control, that sort of thing. It doesn't matter, because that stuff is what you can learn. The talent, that's already here.
And it's
we're going to throw...
great to see,
Sorry?
Yeah, great to see that demonstrated, and great to see, I know that TSM dropped, I'm sure the desk will talk about them, but great to see their improvement as well, as TSM went from just founding their amateur team this split, taking in some new names, especially in Donbray, and I know they fell out here, but making it to quarters as far as they have. Good to see improvement on their part, and I'm excited to see them in the Tier 1 as well, as they'll have to earn their ticket to Proving Grounds there, as EGP continue their track to try and earn their ticket to Proving Grounds in the semis, and earn a win at EGL, as they look like the team that could challenge Wildcard Red.
Yeah, we've got all that ahead. Of course, we are going to throw back to the desk. Before then, I do want to shout out that the broadcast is continuing next week with all those incredible games. You will not want to miss them. For now, thank you so much for watching us. Let's throw things over to Rafa and the analysts.
A goodbye to the lads in plaid. And TJ and Cubby, thank you so much for your awesome work in commentating that last series of the day. And congratulations to Evil Geniuses Prodigies for closing out successfully against TSM Amatuer. I'm not gonna lie, you know, we had our predictions that Evil Geniuses Prodigies were the favorite team. After the game 2, TSM Amatuer potentially inspiring some hope, but then in this game, there's so many people to credit. We cannot thank all of them enough. But let's start with the numero uno here, Jolly, because I'm pretty sure you were shouting their name multiple times with Tomio leading the charge on this Diana, as one of the big blunders for TSM Amatuer, understandably, came from early on when they forced a 4-on-3 and not respecting Aspect's set either here.
Oh my gosh, and hopefully we've got a replay of this stuff because, yes, excellent, we do. All right, production's the best here. You're absolutely right. I was just yelling Tomio, and it was just, Tomio, who are you? How are you this good? How are you this incredible? And there was a lot of this kind of movement, really, really aggressive movement from Frost Forest that happened 1 or 2 times. And Meteos makes a move on this one, Aspect with the communication coming around, and you've got Doxa, but just a little too far behind. as these TPs come through. And Dombre, also a good one to highlight throughout all of these games. Eclipse is the first one to be jumped on, and my goodness, the amount of damage here that we end up getting from Tomio. And then, you know, the later fights, you've got the one up towards the top side, where you end up, well, I think we end up seeing the ultimate come down through here. The moonfall that pulls multiple people in, and it happened so many times in this matchup. There we go. We see an attempt at leaving here. Dox gets face breakered in. And it was just the combination, the immaculate crowd control and roaming and communication from this team. Like I said, communication is so key in this game. The more cohesion a team has with the individual players, the more they're going to communicate. You can tell that was one of their highest priorities in this game.
And the lead that they garnered for Aspect in the mid lane was almost unrecoverable for TSM Amateur, to be speaking here. Now, there was a decent play from TSM around the 12-minute mark when they sent 5 members to collapse over on the Evil Geniuses Prodigies. To be fair, Saskio was not there for the fight, so he couldn't fight a full 5-on-5 full strength, but still, TSM identified that they didn't want the Jace from Surdy to snowball completely out of control to make sure that either Doxa or Eclipse would be able to handle them in the side lane here, Rebel.
When we first walked into this game, when we saw the draft coming out from the side of TSMA, we were like, okay, Nocturne combined with a Galio, combined with like a Ziggs, is a bunch of blind potential AoE CC that can set up a team fight. We didn't get a bunch of instances of those kind of being connected properly. This was the one instance where I think all of that came together in one really meaningful fashion, where all of a sudden, like, everybody gets to come together and use these abilities in one continuous tandem. As it wasn't perfectly played from EGP. I'm not going to say that this was entirely on the side of TSMA, but this was the one time in the game where it felt like they were on the front foot. They were making an attacking move with this Nocturne Galio, and it did end up converting to an advantage and getting Doxa some gold back off the shutdown right there that you saw at the end against Aspect, as perhaps the one really like convincing play that came through from TSM's comp.
And to be fair, there was a moment where TSM did find a decently good fight in the mid lane when Doxa was also splitting on the bottom side of the map. He solo-boloed Surdy in the bottom half of the map as well, so that things are like decently potentially going for a comeback special for TSM Amateur. Cubby and TJ were also kind of spelling and hinting at Slays like, hey, you know what? If TSM Amateur are taking the game slow, they're starting to scale up, they're getting items into their main carries to get back into this game. You look at the other side of Evil Geniuses Prodigies, you know, at some point that composition is not going to fare well if TSM Amateur are able to make up for the gold deficit that they had been suffering for so long. But then Jolly, there's the disastrous fight that Evil Geniuses Prodigies finally found and punished, all off the back of Aspect, as he was just a huge monster on this set, in this entire series as well.
Beautiful. I think this was about 26 minutes into the game, and this is really, I think this is the one where TJ said that's one of the most beautiful plays or fights. I guess that was the later fight, but this one coming through, Aspect goes in, and the Paranoia comes up. The Paranoia has not stalled out EG at all in this game. The communication again is just so dang strong. Doxa tries to take down Saskio there, ends up getting Skytech, but then you just instantly have the re-engage here from the backside. Meteos takes too much, has to get away, and then as soon as Eclipse goes in, they're like, all right, we're going back. So you've got Tomio, who goes in, a beautiful moonfall, and they just play this one out so dang well. And yes, this was the fight. The Void Seeker comes to finish this one off to get the ace off of Frost Forest here. But you can just tell that everything, it's like this team has one singular mind, and they are just working together so well. They know exactly when to follow up these reinitiations, re-engages. Whoever is shot calling for this team, or whoever, you know, the individual or multiple players, there is so much confidence from the rest of the teammates behind them to carry out those plays, and that is amazing to see.
Yeah, the Tomio and Aspect, I think, you know, really came through for in this series. When we go looking back at their Game 1 win, it was the Nidalee for Tomio and the Zoe for Aspect. And you know, Aspect has always been this player that doesn't get a lot of limelight, and usually it's been Tomio, or when you think of the Spring Split, It was Danny before moving up to LCS, or even the fall beforehand when they were still transitioning from Zenith Esports into Evil Genius's Prodigy. Surdy was a big name, known for the Camille and the Kennen gameplay for anyone remembering, Risen Champions Fall 2020. But Aspect, really just coming up huge, getting a lot of the resources in games 1 and 3 respectively, and it really coming out huge. So honestly, massive props to this player for not only always being the role player and the team player that Evil Genius's Prodigies need, but also stepping up and being clutch when they need it. Now, as we begin to close out this series, there's also one other player that we have to, if you're an Evil Geniuses fan, you have to thank. And, I'm gonna have to reach into my back pocket here, as well, not necessarily back pocket, but behind me. But there is a player that came in to sub in for the side of Evil Genius's Prodigies, and it's this man right here, Mr. Tony Saskio Chow, who Evil Geniuses weren't running with Shoryu, but it's okay. They came in and just, just admire this man, as not only he was able to come in clutch and do his responsibilities and justice for Evil Geniuses, but he also had some sick plays. He followed up, and I feel like there's a little bit of fun, not necessarily grudge, but, a little fun banter between the Winthrop boys, as he was finding multiple solo kills on Doxa, isolated out with the Killer Instinct, even a couple times being able to get the Void Seeker down on Frost Force as well. So, if you're Evil Geniuses, just want to give a big shout out once again.
Mr. Mark.
Retired?
What's
Hopefully
up?
not.
Hey, really quick, you forgot the most important aspect of Mr. Saskio here. He is still single, still looking, if you're interested.
There you go. And maybe not retired?
Maybe not retired. I mean, the last time we talked to Winthrop, I mean, when we were going back into that Gateway Collegiate Legends Invitational, Winthrop told us that, Saskio wasn't originally supposed to come, but they pulled him in for one last showdown, and then we even had a talk with him over one of the dinner nights after one of the days of the Invitational, and saying, hey, so what's next for you? Or, now that you graduated, and what are you going to do afterwards? And it's like, oh, well, might look into content creation and streaming, probably not playing professionally anymore. And it's like, you sure? You sure you want to leave?
I don't know if you have a choice anymore. I think teams are just going to start throwing money at you at this point.
Yeah, this is honestly really, really clutch for Evil Geniuses to find someone so great in such a short amount of time. Hopefully, Evil Geniuses going into their semifinals next week will be able to operate on full strength for sure. But still, I mean, if you have someone like Saskio being able to come in and the team still playing just as well as they can, then I don't think anyone has any concerns for Evil Genius's Prodigies. And I do want to direct our attention to the fact that AoE and Zeus still have to play out their series. It will not be played out today, as they needed to reschedule. That will be occurring, I believe, on Thursday off stream at the moment. But we have the finished results for our semifinals. Wildcard Red will be taking on 100 Thieves next, and Evil Genius's Prodigies will be awaiting the victor of Zeus and AoE. Now, Wildcard Red and 100 Thieves next. I'm going to throw the ball over to you first, Rebel, because you are someone who is already super gassed up. Even though many people are, looking at Wildcard Red as the favorites, you especially just want to see how the semifinal plays out.
I'm really excited because, again, I think 100 Thieves have finally turned the corner that we've been waiting for ever since they started with this what is third iteration of this roster. And there's a lot of reasons that I'm excited about that. If I recall, Cubby had given us the information that it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles plus Splinter because of the top laner Gamsu who had the experience, which is a fantastic nickname for this young squad.
Shout out to 100 Talk Pod.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that little nugget of fantastic memery. But the biggest thing also that I'm waiting for is, like, Young Mid is super good. He was in the rotation in the previous split when you had, like, Jojo Pune got picked up and then also Yunbi got picked up, and Young Mid was right there with those two in terms of talent, at least in my back mind. And now that Aurelia's around, he is perhaps the best Aurelia I have seen play in competitive whatsoever from the brief glimpses of moments I got to see from that other series. And that gives me nothing but joy to think about the fact that Aurelia might actually have to be permabanned for a specific reason because this player is so talented. And getting to see that up against a squad is good, especially against Bradley in the mid lane. That's just bubbling me up the way that Aspect does, apparently.
the Young Mid and Bradley mid lane showdown actually might be super exciting to watch, as when we were first watching this 100 Thieves Next roster from the spring, we had a lot of hopes for Young coming into this roster because we had seen him, if you remember his former IGN KT impressions on the rosters like Radiance in 2020, and then going into XT Esports during the fall 2020. He was also having massive performances over there as well. It didn't really show the same resilience in going into spring, and so it was really more about Instinct Abusio, who is another bot lane that, it's Instinct and Busio have been super good, Jolly, but, I mean, they're going up against Arrow Daption, so they are really going to be meeting the biggest challenge they've had so far.
It's true, especially with another young player, and Arrow has been in the scene for quite a while here. Honestly, though, when it gets down to the nitty-gritty with these tournaments, I mean, we've been, doing these, like, amateur collegiate tournaments for quite a while now, but now there are so many more organizations involved, so many more players and teams involved, that when it gets to the Final Four, I mean, you're looking at real nitty-gritty. You're looking at the top, like the best of the best. And I know that's how it's supposed to go, but in the past, there's generally tended to be some sort of sway, like a heavy sway in one direction for a team, a heavy team predicted to win. That is absolutely not the case coming into this because of the incredible new players, young players, like Instinct. I mean, you've got Gorka as well as Eclipse. I mean, you've got a ton of young players just coming out here. But Instinct, I think, is another one that we're going to have a lot of eyes on in the bottom lane for 100 Thieves Next. An incredible player. Another one that is, I think, 17 years old. So very, very young. Hasn't had a lot of time on many other organizations. But these players know exactly what they're going for, which is teamwork, communication, and camaraderie. They're figuring that out a lot earlier than a lot of pro players did. And it's looking really, really good for the scene.
Yeah, I mean, the last org that Instinct came from was back when he was a Cillian as on the Mirage Esports roster for 2020. So, and I think he joined that org super young as well. So the fact that he's still kicking butt at the age of 16, I mean, there's a lot of things that you want to be hoping to see for the 100 Thieves Next matchup, and we'll be sure to, if that is the matchup that we stream next Monday, as if I'm correct here, we should be covering both semifinals on next Monday, and you'll be seeing us three in a different venue, in a different city, as we'll be all joining forces live, coming to Boston in Massachusetts. We'll be coming to you from a super awesome studio, thanks to EGL and Helix Esports we'll be putting together, and I'm looking forward to seeing these awesome two gamers on my side at a desk once again. I couldn't get enough of them at the Gateway Legends Collegiate Invitational when we went to St. Louis, so happy to be reunited with them again. But on behalf of the entire broadcast staff and crew, and also the fellow commentators that did a beautiful job of covering our series earlier today in Kangas and Joshi and TJ and Cubby, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Have a great rest of your week, gamers, and we'll see you next week.